Naruto stood solemnly before a pair of graves as the rain fell down around him, his mind replaying the events from a week prior. Zabuza and Haku, two powerful foes that were capable of killing without making a sound, were tasked with killing Tazuna, a bridge builder that Team 7 were ordered to protect. At first, Naruto could care less about the two enemies. They had insulted and injured both Kakashi and Sasuke, the later of which he believed to be dead from the attack. But once he realized his enemy was the same boy who he'd had a heart-to-heart with, things changed. Naruto got to see firsthand what it meant to lay one's life on the line to protect what's something precious to them. And when Gato lay dead, Zabuza lamented his regret at not being able to tell his partner just how he felt before dying from his injuries. Naruto had fallen into a kind of depression ever since. Even when he realized that Sasuke was alive, it wasn't enough to bring back the fallen pair that had taught him so much. Why did we have to meet as enemies? The blonde couldn't help the tear that fell down his cheek. He truly believed that if circumstances were different, that they both could have been his allies instead of enemies. You'll get sick if you stay out in the rain all day. He hadn't even heard his teacher arrive. The gray-haired Jounin was standing against a tree, his book nowhere in sight. I never get sick, Kakashi-sensei, you know that. True, but you shouldn't chance it anyway. Naruto, I know that you don't want to hear this, but Zabuza and Haku were our enemies. As a ninja, there will be times when killing is unavoidable. That's the reality of the path you choose when you put on that headband. I know that now, sensei, they helped me see that. But they were more than just our enemies. They were human beings with feelings and dreams just like us. And it burns me up that in the end they were used by trash like Gato, who planned to betray them when the job was done, to discard them like a blunt kunai. Kakashi was behind him now, looking at the graves that he helped prepare for his one-time foes. He couldn't argue. The way those two had died left him feeling more than a little uncomfortable. But he'd seen this since he was a child fighting in the Third Ninja War, and over time, he'd grown to accept that this fate was always a possibility. Truthfully, this was the first time he'd ever seen another ninja care about his enemy in such a way, especially when there was nothing but glory to be gained from the defeat of a notorious foe. Then again, Naruto has never been anywhere close to the norm. Well, he is your son, sensei. Maybe I can help him find a better path. Naruto, why don't you take his sword? Said Blonde, turned to give him a look of shock and disgust, his mind flabbergasted at the notion of taking such a trophy. Kakashi seemed to read his mind as he explained himself. No, not in that way. You said Zabuza and Haku deserved better, and you're right. So what better way to make sure their legacy is preserved than by you taking the torch, so to speak? Naruto calmed himself and looked at his teacher in confusion. What do you mean, sensei? I mean that if you really want Zabuza and Haku to be remembered, then you should take his sword and the lessons they taught you to heart. Zabuza had no special abilities or complex jutsu, but he was still one of the toughest opponents I'd ever faced. And do you know what? Naruto shook his head. No, I don't. It's because he worked hard to master not just the basics, but his body and mind. Zabuza wasn't lying when he said he'd massacred an entire graduating class by himself. It was a sign of the times in his village, but it was quite the accomplishment nonetheless. After that, his fame only continued to grow. He even earned a slot on the infamous Seven Swordsmen of the Hidden Mist, a group of master kenjutsu users with his generation as the strongest. The orange-clad ninja was in awe. He knew Zabuza was strong, but he had no idea of the height of his legacy. It was both intimidating and exciting. I had no idea he was that famous. You really think I can do his legacy justice, sensei? Kakashi gave him his patented eye smile. Of course I do. Like I said, Zabuza didn't have a special ability or anything like that. It was just hard work, tactics, and of course teamwork. If you're willing to put in the work, then I believe that you will not only honor his memory, but even surpass him one day. Eyes widening from the thought of surpassing someone like the demon of the mist, Naruto turned his eyes back to the grave. The rain still falling heavy, but it didn't seem so oppressive anymore. He looked to the sword left behind, a rival for the giant of a man who wielded it. And for a moment Naruto could swear that saw Zabuza in the blade's reflection, staring down at him with a challenging smirk not unlike when he'd first encountered the man a month ago. Will you help me, sensei? I know I'm always asking you for new jutsu, but would you be able to teach me the jutsu that he had? Kakashi placed a hand on his sun-kissed head and ruffled his hair around playfully. Of course I will. That's my job after all. I might not be a master of kenjutsu, nor can I say I've perfected his style of silent killing, but I can get you on the right path. Naruto wasn't sure if the nod he received from the image was real or just his imagination. 2 weeks later, and the bridge was complete. Tazuna and the rest of the village stood with bidding farewell to a partial Team 7. Sasuke had made a full recovery in that time and was anxious to get back to training. Sakura, however, just wanted to get back home to her beloved bed. Whereas Naruto, that idiot, has been missing since this morning. Kakashi Simple flipped another page in his book. He's just saying his farewells. He'll be here soon enough. Sakura crossed her arms and huffed. Who could he be saying goodbye to? Everyone in the village is just about here. Sasuke was wondering the same thing. Tazuna and his family was here, and Naruto hadn't really talked to anyone else in the village. But soon his question was answered when the blonde appeared running awkwardly towards the bridge, the sword of their fallen enemy strapped to his back. Needless to say, Sakura was livid. Naruto, you made us wait while you went grave robbing. Before Naruto could stop and explain himself, Sakura was already in action, whacking him several times with her fists as he tried in vain to defend himself. Ow. Sakura-chan, it's not like that, honest. I'm going to honor them by learning how to use his sword. Sakura stopped her assault and looked at Naruto as if he'd grown a second head. Leave it to Naruto to think of something so absurd. Naruto dash. Whatever, Dobe, but you'd better not slow us down with that thing. I don't want to keep stopping because you're tired. Hey, shut up, bastard. I'll still be to go on longer than you even if I have twice the weight. Believe it. Sakura watched the two trade insults before sighing to herself. If her teacher and Sasuke were okay with his actions, then she wasn't going to harp on him about it. Whatever. As long as you weren't planning on defiling their graves, then I guess it's okay. Naruto gave her a pout. That's mean, Sakura-chan. You can't really think I'd do something like that, would you? This coming from the same person who pranked a sweet old lady by covering her in orange paint. Hey, she had it coming. I swear she was always tossing out dirty water on me on purpose. Team 7 arrived at the gates of Konoha under the afternoon sun after a swift but uneventful trip from the land of waves. The three genin were visibly winded as Kakashi thought it would be a good idea to simulate an emergency pace for their return, but despite having to carry a sword that weighted significantly more than him, Naruto was still in better shape than either Sasuke or Sakura, a testament to his monstrous stamina. Kakashi looked at his winded genin and gave them an eye smile. I know how much you guys want to wash and rest, but we still have to debrief the Hokage on what occurred. He received two very intense glares from Sasuke and Sakura and only mild annoyance from Naruto, before scratching the back of his head. Well, how about I take care of it this once? You three have earned a rest, take a week to recover, and we'll meet up at Training Ground 7. As they all began to depart, Naruto quickly called out to his teacher, Hey, Kakashi-sensei, about what we talked about before. Kakashi paused and eyed his blonde student. Oh, you're not too tired from the trip? No way. Well, I mean, I'm kinda tired, but I can still train before resting up, believe it. Well, since you're probably the only one that feels that way, meet me at Field 7 in an hour. We'll go over the basics and evaluate just where you stand. With that, he disappeared in a swirl of leaves, leaving him alone at the front gate with the two guards, both of which were giving his newly acquired sword odd stares. Before they could ask, Naruto began sprinting through the village, taking to the roof so he could avoid the heavy civilian traffic all the way back to his apartment. After a few more minutes, he was disabling his home-built alarm system and removing the sword from his back to give himself a breather. His apartment was left unmolested in his absence, either because of his efforts or his leaving the village, he did not know, but the only change was the small amount of dust that had gathered here and there. Unpacking what little he took on the trip to Wave, Naruto stripped free of his orange jumpsuit and his undergarments before jumping into the shower to wash away the built-up grime. The hot water did wonders for his aching muscles, the soreness fading with every minute under their care. 45 minutes later, he was clean, revitalized, and dressed a clean uniform before he grabbed the giant sword and making his way to Training Ground 7. Naruto arrived to find the area empty. No sign of Kakashi or anyone else for that matter. Knowing Kakashi-sensei, he's going to be late to this meeting too. Stabbing the sword into the ground, Naruto sat before it as he tried to remember everything about the way Zabuza had fought. He was really strong and fast, almost faster than Kakashi-sensei when it came down to it. But he was also quiet. He appeared in the middle of our formation without a sound, and you could barely hear him swing the blade. I'm nowhere near that level of speed or power, but maybe I can work on making myself quieter. Gathering his chakra, Naruto crossed his fingers in the ram seal and produced 10 shadow, 11 shadow clones. The clones popped into existence, and immediately 9 of them ventured into the forest surrounding the area, while the original hung back with one of his clones. All right, if Kakashi comes before I'm done, then make sure to call out to me. Right, boss? With that, Naruto followed his clones into the forest, leaving the one clone to idly watch the clouds. About a half hour later, Kakashi appeared in the training ground right in front of Naruto, startling the blonde from his gazing. Yo! Naruto scrambled to his feet before pointing accusingly at his teacher. You're late, Kakashi-sensei. Mama, I would have been here on time, but I had to water my plants after a month of neglect. Wait, really? Of course. Now, why don't we get started with your training? First dash. Wait a minute, sensei, I've got to go get the boss. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the statement. Boss? So you're a shadow clone? Yeah. Hold on, I'll just dash. Before he could finish, Kakashi bopped the clone hard on the top of the head and made it disperse. A few moments later, the original Naruto appeared, rubbing his head with a scowl on his face. Hey, Kakashi-sensei, wait, you do that for? Well, it seemed like the fastest way to get your attention. But if you'd have waited, the clone would have. His words came to a halt as his brain began to process what just happened. The clone didn't come get me, but I knew Kakashi was here because he popped it. But then that means I know what the clones know when they are popped, right? Kakashi could help but shake his head in slight disappointment at the surprised look on his student's face. Naruto, you've been using those clones for about 3 months, and you're just now realizing how they work? Naruto sheepishly scratched his head. Well, I've never really used them for messaging or anything before. And whenever I used them in a fight, I always saw them get destroyed, so I never noticed. Does this mean if I use them to do a bunch of exercises that I'll get stronger? Well, no, they don't really work like that. Allow me to explain. The reason shadow clones are a forbidden jutsu is because of 2 things. One, that they take a lot of chakra to use, as they split your chakra in half with each clone made, so the possibility of dying from chakra exhaustion is very high. The second reason is that these clones are able to pass on everything they've learned to the original, making them very useful for scouting. However, that carries the risk of mentally taxing a person into insanity or death with information overload. I'm surprised you didn't pick any of that up when you learned the jutsu. I didn't really have a lot of time to read through the scroll at the time. I just saw that it was a clone jutsu, and since I couldn't do the regular clone back in the academy, I figured shadow clones would be a good enough substitute to pass. Kakashi just shook his head. Well, it's for the best, I suppose. So what were you doing with your clones in the forest? I was using them for ninja hide and seek. Ninja hide and seek? Yeah, I remembered how silent Zabuza moved and wanted to practice doing the same. So I made some clones and had them hide in the forest while I tried to hunt them down and destroy them without them noticing. I only managed to get 3 of them. The others kept hearing me and running. Yeah, I remembered how silent Zabuza moved and wanted to practice doing the same. So I made some clones and had them hide in the forest while I tried to hunt them down and destroy them without them noticing. I only managed to get 3 of them. The others kept hearing me and running. Here. That way you can gain some experience with being hunted and with hunting a target. Naruto quickly complied and watched as his clones ran into the thicket before turning back to his sensei. So what are we going to do for training, Kakashi-sensei? Am I going to learn Kenjutsu? Or maybe you're going to teach me how to use the hidden mist jutsu? Kakashi chuckled. Actually, before we do anything with Kenjutsu or ninjutsu, we have to talk about your strengths and weaknesses. Naruto deflated at the news. What do you mean, sensei? Well, to be honest, you're a lot different from Zabuza, both in terms of power and height. Zabuza could swing his sword around no problem, And because of that, his kenjutsu was fast and strong. Not only that, but his taijutsu was more focused around his legs, enabling him to kick people out of range so he could use his sword more effectively. You, however, are barely able to lift his sword, and you aren't really tall enough for your kicks to be that effective at making room. With each weakness listed grew discouraged, the differences between them looking much too high to overcome. But his resolve did not crumble as he gritted his teeth in determination. I can't help how tall I am, but I won't let that stop me from carrying on their legacy. If I can't use his sword now, then I'll just keep getting strong until I can. Believe it. Kakashi smiled beneath his mask before continuing on. My thoughts exactly. So instead of focusing on your kicks, I'll instead teach you a style that promotes speed, power, and flexibility. That way you can get strong enough to wield such a sword, while also giving you the tools to make room for kenjutsu, or if space is limited, give you an alternate means of defending yourself. The gray-haired Jounin removed a storage scroll before dumping out several weights and a vest with strange writing on them. Now, put these on each limb and let's get started. For the rest of the week, Naruto was drilled into the ground by Kakashi. The vest and weights added a total of 100 pounds to his body, about the same weight as the decapitation blade. And with it, he went through several grueling exercises to build muscles and further increase his stamina. Kakashi also sewed up the holes in his basic katas with him using 3 shadow clones, telling the blonde that it would not do to build on a faulty foundation. By Monday, the result was a drastic increase in proficiency with the academy-style taijutsu and a greater amount of body control with silencing his footsteps. Kakashi watched as Naruto continued to improve under his tutelage, and he couldn't help the small amount of pride that welled up inside him. After failing more than 5 teams from the academy, he never thought that teaching would be especially rewarding, but now he knew he was mistaken. I've been slacking too in my instructing. I'll have to make it up to all of them so that they can grow into the ninja I know they can be. But even Kakashi had his limits. He was a genius, a jack of all trades and master of them all, but teaching did not come easy for him. Probably never would. Naruto was an easy fix. Fill the holes and teach him a few jutsu, and his work ethic would carry the day. The kid had imagination, unlike his other 2 wards. Sasuke was obsessed with revenge. He just wanted more powerful jutsu and didn't really think about fleshing things out, while Sakura didn't seem to care about anything other than impressing Sasuke. Sasuke won't be satisfied until someone puts him in his place, but it has to be someone else, someone without the Sharingan. I might not be able to break Sakura's obsession, but I can use it to motivate her. I think it's time I swallowed my pride. Asuma was enjoying a cigarette as he played against his student in a game of shogi when another person arrived in the training grounds. What brings you here, Kakashi? Kurenai watched as Hinata and Shino sparred while Kiba, along with Akamaru, worked on their family jutsu. When Kakashi appeared, Hitaki, why are you here? On my hip, rival. Have you come to show my team the power of your youth? Now, the majority of Team 7 was sitting in the training ground waiting for their teacher to arrive. Naruto was sitting against his sword looking at the clouds, while Sasuke was simply starting out into the distance as Sakura bombarded him with stories of her week off, which he pointedly ignored. Just when it seemed like he couldn't take it anymore, the raven-haired boy caught movement on the field as 3 girls made their way towards them. Sasuke-kun. While he remained completely stoic on the outside, inside he was cringing as he realized that his fangirl trouble just doubled. HNN. Ino ran over and lashed herself onto Sasuke, much to his horror and Sakura's annoyance, while the other 2 girls just stopped over by Naruto as they watched in equal parts embarrassment and fascination. Let him go, Ino pig. Sasuke doesn't want to be held by a fatty like you. Shut up, billboard brow. Sasuke likes to be held by a real woman. Isn't that right, Sasuke-kun? HNN. Naruto just looked at them and shook his head before turning back to the other 2 girls, one of which he knew from school. Hinata Hyuga wasn't like most girls. She was quiet and soft-spoken for one, and while most of the other girls in class pined after Sasuke, it was not the same for her. She was also one of the few people who actually treated Naruto like a person. The other girl wore a pink shirt with green pants and had brown hair kept in 2 buns on either side of her head. The look on her face as she watched the other three genin made it clear that she wasn't impressed with them. Geez, I thought the next class would be a little more mature by now. Naruto gave a sheepish chuckle. Yeah, usually they aren't so bad, but when Sasuke's around then all bets are off. I'm Naruto Uzumaki by the way, what's your name? Sorry, I'm 1010 from Team Guy. Oh, what are you girls doing here? No clue. My teacher just told me to come here for training. I met up with Ino and Hinata on the way here. The shy girl just pushed her fingers together and blushed. Hello Naruto-kun. Hey Hinata-chan. It's been a while since I've seen you. I'll bet you've gotten really stronger since then. She only smiled and looked away as he blush intensified. Tintin just rolled her eyes at the display before turning her attention to the sword that towered at an angle behind the blonde. Her eyes widened as she took another step forward and inspected the blade. No way. This is the Kubikurabocho. Naruto frowned. He'd never heard it called that before. Kubi what? Is that what Zabuza's sword is called? Tintin whirled around and grabbed him by his shirt, pulling him close as she stared into his eyes with a fever. This is his sword? Why do you have one of the legendary swords from the Hidden Mist? Naruto swallowed hard. This girl was starting to freak him out. Well, I'm learning to use it to honor his legacy. She went back to inspecting the sword, pulling it out of the ground with great effort as she looked it over with stars in her eyes. Is it true? Does this sword really have that kind of ability? Now it was his turn to look confused. Ability? I thought it was just a massive sword with no real hidden secrets. Oh no. All 7 of the legendary blades have an ability. The Kubikurabocho is said to never dull, and is the hardest of the swords to break. But even if somehow it manages to become fractured, it repairs itself with the iron from the blood of its victims. Compared to the other swords, it might not seem that amazing, but it says a lot for its wielder that they can fight on even ground with them. Naruto listened with rapt attention, glad to know the name of his new blade, and to know that Zabuza really wasn't hiding some super special ability that made him great. Walking over to the blade, he hoisted it up and placed it back into the ground as Tintin marveled at it. One day you're going to have to tell me the story of how you got that blade. You'd better do everything in your power to honor it. Otherwise, I'll defeat you and claim it for myself. He could see the sincerity in her eyes, and he hoped his own shone as brightly as he nodded in return. Just then Kakashi appeared in the middle of the field, earning the attention of all the genin as Ino and Sakura screamed at him. You're late. Mom, sorry. I had to help an elderly man weed his garden. Liar. Nevertheless, the genin gathered up, Naruto noticing that Hinata placed herself between him and Sasuke, earning the ire of both Sakura and Ino, but she didn't seem to care. Well, this is a little crowded, right? Naruto, Sakura, Sasuke. In light of recent events, I've arranged for the 3 of you to receive a month of training from 3 different teachers. Sakura, you'll be going to Training Ground 3 to meet up with the rest of Team Guy. He's an expert in taijutsu, and quite frankly, it's something I've noticed you're lacking even with your great chakra control. Sasuke, you'll be going to Field 4 to train with Kurenai and Team 8. She specializes in Jinjutsu, and if you really are aiming for Itachi, then you'll have to learn everything you can about one of his favorite forms of attack. Naruto, you'll be meeting Team 10, led by Asuma, in Training Ground 1. What am I going to be learning from him, sensei? Is he a Kenjutsu specialist? Or maybe he's going to teach me taijutsu? No, nothing like that. He's actually going to be helping you make your mind sharper, so to speak. He's very good with team tactics and planning. The orange ninja deflated a bit at that, but rather than complain, he simply grabbed his sword and prepared to leave. Okay, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi raised an eyebrow as he expected a fight from the blonde. You're not going to challenge me on this? Naruto simply shook his head. No, I understand. It's like you said, I've got to get stronger both in body and mind if I want to reach my goal. Am I still allowed to do my stealth and taijutsu training? Kakashi just gave him an eye smile as the rest of the rookies looked at Naruto in shock. They never, ever, thought they'd see the day that Naruto agreed to boring bookwork. Of course, you'll meet with your new sensei every morning, Monday through Thursday. Then all of you will go back to your teams after lunch to continue whatever your regular teacher has in store for you. Friday will be for missions. Saturday and Sunday will be for rest and recovery. Sasuke stood up with anger in his eyes. Why can't you train me in Jinjutsu? You have the Sharingan. Whatever Jinjutsu I need to learn, I'll learn from you. Kakashi remained aloof. Oh, that reminds me. No Sharingan for the next month. If not, leering under Kakashi made Sasuke mad. This next news made him livid. He was about to open his mouth to let his teacher know just how stupid he thought that plan was, but a small spike of killing intent froze the words in his throat. Sasuke, you need to understand that while I'm open to suggestions, I am still your commander. And if I say no Sharingan for a week, then your only response is yes, sir. Do you understand? It was visible the amount of effort it took for Sasuke to swallow his pride. But after a moment to compose himself, the boy responded in a hiss. Yes, sir. Good. You might think it cruel, but I'm doing this to help you. The Sharingan, for all its uses, is still just a tool. The same goes to the rest of you. Ninjutsu, Jinjutsu, family styles, all of it is just tools to make you a better ninja. And while it is okay to specialize in certain fields, neglecting the others will only make you easier to beat in the end. He paused as he scanned the crowd of children to make sure his message sunk in before looking back to Sasuke. There were plenty of ninja with fully matured Sharingan that still fell to their enemies because they were too proud of their precious eyes. You cannot afford to make the same mistake. Itachi had mastered Jinjutsu without his Sharingan first before he supplemented its power with his bloodline. That's one of the reasons he was able to snare even his clansmen in his illusions. You don't need to just learn Jinjutsu. You need to understand how they work, how to cast them, and more importantly, how to free yourself from their grasp without your bloodline. You might not like it, but before you can worry about surpassing Itachi, you must first focus on walking in his footsteps and mastering what he mastered. The raven-haired boy calmed himself as he realized Kakashi was right. First, I'll erase his reputation, then I'll surpass him and avenge my clan. Seeing as there was nothing left to say, Sasuke began to make his way towards Training Field 4. Naruto and Sakura also departed, leaving the three females alone with the Cyclops, who just gave them his infamous eye smile. Now, let's get down to business, shall we? Sasuke found himself surrounded by greenery as he made his way to the meeting place for his training with Kurenai. Though he was not as angry as when Kakashi first told him who he'd be training with, the young Avenger still felt that his time was wasted being taught by a jounin who hadn't even made a name for herself yet. Onyx's eyes fell on said ninja as she sat on a fallen log, her legs crossed as she waited for his arrival. Sasuke's eyes widened as he caught sight of the woman, whose long black hair, pale skin, and red eyes gave her the appearance of an Uchiha. Yet upon closer inspection, he found that her eyes, while the same color, lacked the pinwheel that would have identified her as a Sharingan user. As he brought himself to stand before her, the woman rose with a scoff as she looked at the boy, none too impressed. Should have figured Kakashi would pass along his bad habits to his students. Let me guess, lost on the road to life. Sasuke frowned. He only arrived about 10 minutes ago. I didn't know I'd be meeting another teacher today. The boy swore he'd get his sensei back for this. Even if he didn't want to be here, showing up late was unacceptable, especially for the last Uchiha. Right, just don't make a habit of it. Now I'm sure he already told you, but you've been sent to me to learn the ways of Jinjutsu. Tell me, what have you been taught Jinjutsu so far? Resisting the urge to scoff, Sasuke diligently recalled all the information he had on the subject in a bored monotone. Jinjutsu is one of the three types of jutsu used by ninja alongside ninjutsu and taijutsu. By using your chakra to invade another ninja's mind, you can craft an illusion to fool their five senses using their own chakra against them. Alternatively, defending against Jinjutsu is done by disrupting your chakra flow with the chakra kai technique, or if unable to do that, causing a strong enough injury to break your mind from the illusion. Kurenai nodded. That's about the gist of it, but when you come to understand the art like I have, then you'll realize how crude you make it sound. Lots of people don't know this, but Jinjutsu requires a trigger to start the illusion. Most of the time this is accomplished by the hand signs, but there are plenty of other ways to snare an opponent. She was pacing now, her instructor voice in full bloom as she continued to lecture her new student, who seemed partially interested. Tell me, Sasuke, what do you think a ninja's biggest liability is? The question caught the genin off guard. But he didn't have to think long for his answer. Our bonds. When we care about others, it creates a weakness that can be exploited by our enemies. Kurenai paused and gave Sasuke a calculating gaze, one that he was determined to return until finally she spoke. Given what you've been through, I can see why you'd think that, but I disagree. You're right in that a ninja's bonds can be used against them, but it is those very relationships that can be used to make us stronger. Still, that's a conversation for another time. No, I believe that a ninja's greatest liability is the subconscious. Sasuke had to admit he was not expecting that for an answer. What do you mean? Despite what a lot of people think, the human mind only really cares about one thing: survival. In fact, we actually separate our mind into three parts just so we have a better chance at surviving: the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind. I won't bore you with the details, but as it turns out, very few things ever escape your notice. It's just that once you subconsciously deem that it isn't a threat to your survival, that you stop paying attention to them. For example, did you notice the birds singing to each other? Raising a brow, the preteen turned his attention to his surroundings and honed in on two birds calling out to one another in the trees. It was only after he realized that they could hear the song that he felt a small tickle in the back of his throat and a feeling of unease. Locking eyes with a now smiling Jounin, Sasuke brought his hands together and performed the chakra kai, his flow, and breaking the jinjutsu. The woman before him vanished, replaced by the feeling of cold steel against his throat as she stood beside him. When? She smiled. Since you first locked eyes with me. Needless to say, he was astonished. I don't understand. I didn't notice anything out of place. The best ones are like that. You'll come to understand that anything can be a trigger for jinjutsu, from a glance to the target's own breathing. Don't misunderstand me. It took 3 years to successfully snare my teacher with this method, and many more perfecting it for different situations. Itachi did it in 1, and after another 6 months, he was able to take it to heights unparalleled before he left the village. I know your goal, but if you even hope to survive a second against him, you've got a lot of catching up to do. Sasuke couldn't help the grin that spread across his face, excited at the prospect of getting stronger. Teach me, sensei. Sakura hated her sensei. Ever since she arrived at Training Ground 3, Sakura had her vision assaulted by a pair of monstrosities in skin-tight green spandex. Both of them sported bowl cuts with giant eyebrows and had the volume control that rivaled her blonde teammate. To make matters worse, one of them was smitten with her, a notion that made her shiver. After denying this Rock Lee 3 times in the last 5 minutes, it seemed even his sensei had enough. Lee, your flames of youth burn brightly, but perhaps her heart is set on another. Yes, Gai-sensei. I will run around the village 12 times in hopes of earning her affection, and if I cannot do that, then I shall do 100 one-handed push-ups. That's the spirit, Lee. With his teacher's praise, the energetic student sprinted off into the distance to complete his task, much to Sakura's relief. You'll have to forgive Lee. His youth is truly in full bloom. Now my hip rival has asked me to embed in you the seed of youth, that it's taijutsu. But before we do that, we must first evaluate your physical state. Come, we'll do my personally designed warm-up routine. Said routine consisted of stretches that were relatively demanding but not impossible, followed by a mile run, 20 push-ups, and other various assortments of physical activity that left Sakura gasping on the ground by the time it was over. Guy looked at her with concern and no small amount of disapproval. Sakura, this is unexpected. This routine is only slightly tougher than what an academy student would be used to. The pink-haired girl propped herself up onto her hands, still clearly worn out though she'd been resting for 5 minutes. Sorry. I don't usually do so much at once. Her face was flushed both from exhaustion, but also from embarrassment. While she was never the fastest or the strongest, Sakura didn't think that her physical condition was this poor, and to be compared to an academy student after coming so far was a blow to her pride. Guy shook the frown from his face and replaced it with one of his brilliant smiles. No matter, Sakura. Kakashi has entrusted you to me, and together we'll fan the flames of your youth until they burn as brightly as Lee's. But before that, we must work on a proper diet. I'll be sending you home with some nutrition bars to be eaten first before every meal. That, along with our month of training, should see an increase in your stamina, speed, and strength. Sakura cheered up at the news, but when he started talking about a diet, she grew sheepish. This diet, won't it make me thicker? The bowl-cut Jounin adopted a confused expression before realization snapped into place. You're worried about your physique? Well, it's true that this will increase your weight, but since we're burning all those calories, it'll just get you up to a healthy weight for your age and height. Truth be told, Sakura, the reason you're suffering now is because you are malnourished, and by the looks of it, you've been that way for a while. I understand that as a woman you want to retain your looks, but your effectiveness as a ninja shouldn't suffer for it. After all, there are plenty of youthful ninja that are both powerful and beautiful in their own way. Now come, enough rest, it's time to get to work. Naruto found himself sitting between Shikamaru and his sensei, Asuma, as they faced off in a very confusing game of shogi. His face turned up in a grimace. I don't get it. What does this have to do with tactics and planning? Shikamaru let out a heavy sigh while Asuma just chuckled. I told you, this game is easily a representation of not only single battles, but it can also be used for tactical planning for entire armies. Each piece has a role to play, and how you utilize them can lead to either a glaring defeat or a flawless victory. Naruto placed his hands behind his head as he continued to look at the board. I guess that's true, but this is still super boring. It takes you guys like 10 minutes to make a move. Naruto, Asuma-sensei, and I have to take our time to think things through. Each of us is looking ahead before we make a move and trying to avoid the traps that we're setting for each other. If we move too fast, then things could get troublesome. And so it went, each of the players taking their time and coming up with different strategies, while Naruto tried not to fall asleep as he watched them play on. After another 2 hours, the game was finished, with Shikamaru defeating the bearded Jounin after some impressive play. They were getting ready to set the board again when Naruto groaned in dismay. Alright, how about you play Shikamaru? That way you'll get some experience. Enthused to do something else besides watching, the blonde set the board and tried his hand at the game. In an hour, he'd been beaten 5 times by the pineapple-headed genius. The first 2 games Naruto forgot how pieces moved, so he didn't stand a chance. But the next 3 games he was trounced by superior strategy as he fell into every pitfall. Arg, how are you so good at this, Shikamaru? Asuma gave the blonde a pat on the back. Don't worry about losing so much. Shikamaru might not look it, but the kid's a genius. It's your first day, but in a month's time you might actually be able to give him a run for his money. Just remember that you're supposed to be using this time to learn strategy and planning. Think about how you lost and the mistakes you made, and learn from them. A week had passed since Team 7 started their new training regiment, and each member found themselves almost overwhelmed by the increase in pace, as Kakashi also started them with ninjutsu training. True to his word, Kakashi taught Naruto the hidden mist jutsu, something he picked up with some level of difficulty despite finding out his chakra nature was wind. After 5 days of shadow clone enhanced training, he'd finally gotten it down, though he needed to have a water source nearby to use it. His work with Asuma and Shikamaru, however, was painfully dull. In the last week, he'd only managed to last 12 moves against the genius, no matter what type of strategy he used. Sasuke, after finding out his element, was given a low-level lightning jutsu to learn called Discharge. It worked by imbuing a weapon with lightning chakra and increasing the piercing strength of the object, as well as discharging the lightning into a small area when released by the user. Now he was working on yet another jutsu that, when mastered, would send a jolt of lightning through his opponent and disable them on contact. The only drawback was that he could not use his bloodline to simply copy the jutsu, meaning he had to learn them the old-fashioned way. This wasn't nearly as difficult as he thought, since he learned Discharge in only 3 days and was almost done mastering the shock palm. But when it came to his Jinjutsu practice, the boy couldn't help but scowl. Kurenai thought that the best practice for sensing and dispelling Jinjutsu was best learned in the middle of a fight. So she pitted him against either Shino or Kiba and would randomly cast what she called low-level Jinjutsu onto him, altering his senses until he dispelled them. Normally, he'd have no trouble with her students or dispelling Jinjutsu. Together, however, they proved too much for the Uchiha, which left him in a dark mood. As for Sakura, well, she was exhausted. Guy was running, breaking her down physically and rebuilding her. a grueling process that left her sore in places that she didn't even realize she had muscles. The pink-haired girl could barely stand when she made it to Kakashi, but he showed her little mercy as he tested her element, found that Earth was her calling. Needless to say, he was happy with such diversity on the team, and so he began giving her low-level Earth Jutsu to work on. The girl's normally perfect control was marred by her physical state, but she managed to learn it in 4 days nonetheless. It was 1:30, and the three youths were all waiting for Kakashi to arrive so they could begin his course of hell for today. Two Narutos were sitting under a tree, one reading a history of famous battles, and the other reading a beginner's guide to tactics. Sakura was not far away, lightly napping as she was much too drained to fawn over Sasuke, who himself was busy pondering his predicament with Quarina. Oddly enough, another Naruto walked out of the forest, looking around for something before scowling. Man, Kakashi-sensei still isn't here? Why the heck does he take so long? His voice was enough to wake Sakura from her slumber, and upon seeing that her teacher wasn't there, she glared at Naruto with as much annoyance as she could muster. Naruto, keep it down. If you wake me before sensei gets here again, I swear I'll make you suffer for it. Sorry, Sakura-chan, I'll be quieter. She gave him another glare before resting her eyes again and trying to go back to sleep. Naruto sighed. Man, she's even scarier when she's tired. Oh well, guess I'll get another round in. Maybe I'll try using the sword this time. Hearing this piqued Sasuke's interest. What are you doing, Dobe? Training, obviously. What's it to you, bastard? HNN, as if any amount of training would make a difference for an idiot like you. Naruto looked at his rival and gave his signature foxy grin. Oh yeah? I bet you couldn't do it any faster than me. Sasuke paused at the expression. He'd been around Naruto long enough to know that any time that grin appeared, it was usually followed by a prank of some sort. And though Sasuke knew that the blonde wasn't the brightest of people, he was still the most unpredictable ninja in Konoha. Were he anyone else, he'd probably back down. But this wasn't anyone else, and he was Sasuke Uchiha, the Rookie of the Year. No way he was going to run from the dead last challenge. Itchin and bring it on, Dobe. I'll ace whatever training you've got. 10 minutes later, and Sasuke was regretting those words. When his teammate told him all he had to do was hunt down and kill 10 shadow clones in the woods, he'd thought that it would be easy, especially since they could only take one good hit. But the Uchiha had no idea what he was really in for. The clones were like ghosts, appearing only briefly before vanishing into their surroundings almost completely. Not only that, but they were fast, maneuvering through the forest as if the dozens of trees and countless branches weren't even there. Not only did this make catching them next to impossible, since they made little to no noise and seemed to hear every step he took, the Uchiha couldn't even sneak up on them, forcing him to attack them only when they dared attack him first. In the 10 minutes that he'd been trying, he only managed to pop 5. Sasuke knew that he wasn't supposed to use his Sharingan, but he was sorely tempted after another assault formed the orange construct. Just as he was about to lose his cool, and he felt a firm hand on his shoulder. Well, this is unexpected. Having trouble, Sasuke? The boy turned and gave his eternally truant teacher a scowl before shrugging off his hand and making his way back to clearing where 6 grinning blondes waited for him. Wasn't so easy, was it, bastard? HNN, can it, Dope? I'd have beaten the rest of those cowards if Sensei hadn't arrived. Oh yeah. Kakashi split the 2 boys up with a hand on each of them. Now, this isn't the time for a fight. Although I have to say, Naruto, I'm impressed. It looks like you really have been working on your stealth. Sasuke, you must remember that even though Naruto was the dead last in the academy, his work ethic and ingenuity make him a fine ninja. Now, how about a progress report before we begin? But first it looks like I need to wake up our other teammate. While Kakashi went to wake Sakura, Sasuke, as Naruto went to pick his sword, formed the ground with a calculating gaze. 0-0-0-0-0-0. Kakashi sat and listened as his charges explained their progress with both his assignments and the training with the other teachers, with seeming indifference on his face, but inward, he was scheming. Well, I can't say I'm surprised at the results. Each of you are being trained on what I considered your weakest elements. But don't worry, after a few more weeks I'm sure you'll get it down. Now how about we start on ninjutsu practice? I have a new jutsu for each of you, but first. The silver-haired Jounin made a familiar sign and created a shadow clone. Naruto, you'll go with my clone today. After seeing how much you've improved in both your stealth and taijutsu, I think it's time you learned a new style. Pick up your sword and follow my clone. Naruto exploded with excitement. All right, finally something besides boring old shogi. Together with his sword and clone teacher, the two departed for a different section of the training ground. Sasuke was none too pleased. Why is the dobe always getting special treatment? You should be training me, not wasting time with the dead last. Kakashi simply waved him off. Ma, calm down, Sasuke. I'm not giving him special treatment, but rewarding him for his hard work. He was easily the weakest of the genin a few months ago. Now he's excelling at all the tasks I've given him and getting up to speed. Still, I'm not ignoring you two. He turned towards the lone female who was barely keeping herself awake. Sakura, until I can get you up to speed in taijutsu, we'll have to continue using your great control to augment your abilities, starting with your ninjutsu pool. I suggest you put some thought into what you want to branch out to. Medical jutsu and jinjutsu are both recommended because of your control, but they aren't by any means the only things available to you. Stifling a yawn, she replied, "Yes, sensei." And as for you, Sasuke, the raven-haired teen locked eyes with his teacher, the eager intent to get stronger radiating from his smaller frame. I can't say that you're incapable in any area. Only time and experience stand between you and your goal. We'll continue to bolster both your elemental ninjutsu to give you some diversity, but I also think it's time I taught you my own personal style of fighting. You experienced it firsthand that the Uchiha style isn't very reliable without the Sharingan. My style will help you when your eyes fail you, and it even blends with your current style pretty well. Sasuke couldn't suppress the smirk that came with the new knowledge. The dobe had managed to close the gap between them by a small amount. He would work even harder to open it up again, all the while catching up to his true goal. 0-0-0-0-0. Naruto was overflowing with energy even as he struggled to carry his sword because of his extra weights. "Nay, Kakashi-sensei, are you going to teach me your own personal style? Or maybe you've copied some super cool taijutsu from a legendary ninja you faced?" Kakashi just laughed at his student's antics. "No, it's nothing like that. My own style isn't really suited for you, and any copied taijutsu would be flawed unless I witnessed it fully. No, I actually was able to call in a few favors to get you access to a family style of sorts." The blonde was about to ask what he meant, but his eyes fell onto a person up ahead. It was a man with spiky brown hair and tan skin wearing a green short-sleeved shirt with brown cargo pants. He was about Kakashi's height but smaller, with a thick brown mustache on his face. But oddly enough, the man seemed familiar to Naruto, though he couldn't put his finger on it. As they approached, the man spotted them and smiled. "Still late as usual, huh, Kakashi?" The Jounin scratched his head. "Well, you know how it is." "Of course. Knowing you, it was rescuing a cat from the Inuzuka hounds, or something like that. These things only seem to happen to me." As the two talked, Naruto couldn't stop staring at the stranger. He was positive he'd never seen him before, but both his face and voice felt familiar yet different. He's not one of the usual gate guards, and he didn't teach at the academy. Not one of the ninja handing out missions either. Maybe the Hokage Tower. Naruto tried to recall his face, but came up empty, that is until he heard the man laugh at something Kakashi had said. The blonde's brain connected the laugh with a face, and as he looked at the older man, it clicked in his head exactly who he reminded him of. "You look just like Konohamaru." The man chuckled and grinned at Naruto. "More like he looks like me. I am his old man after all." It was true, with the exception of the mustache and his age. The man was a splitting image of the young Konohamaru that Naruto had befriended. "Oh man, I always wondered why I never saw his parents. They must have just been away on missions." Kakashi cleared his throat and got Naruto's attention. "Naruto, this is Yusuke Sabutori, your new taijutsu teacher for the next few months. We're old friends, and I had to call in my tab with him in order to get him, so don't waste this opportunity." "Don't give yourself too much credit, Kakashi. I could have paid off the tab, but this kid's reputation is what made me interested." He turned to Naruto with a friendly smile. "My son speaks highly of you, and word is you're the one who's been keeping him from being a brat while me and the wife are away. Figured we owed you for that, though I can't say you've earned a lot of points with the missus. teaching him that sexy jutsu nearly turned her hair gray. Naruto had the decency to look guilty at that. Sorry about that. That jutsu works on the old man all the time and weeds out the perverts from hiding. Yusuke gave him a knowing grin. Tell me about it. Ebisu has been having a hell of a time taming my son and his friends because of it. The blonde had to admit, he liked this guy. He wasn't as serious as the other ninja always seemed to be, and he had an appreciation for the finer arts of pranking. Kakashi coughed, gaining their attention once more, right then. Naruto, you'll be reporting to Yusuke after lunch, except of course on the weekend. You can only have 20 clones out at a time, and dispel them one by one, otherwise you could hurt yourself. Having delivered his message, the clone simply dispelled with a small poof. Yusuke turned to his new charge. All right, I'll be teaching you the monkey fist, a style taught by the monkey clan that we Sabutori hold the contract for. The first thing you have to realize is that our style doesn't focus around stances. It's a freeform style that uses misdirection, speed, power, and flexibility to both attack and defend. That being said, there are a few different styles that compose the art. The older man began stumbling around, his legs often crossing over one another, and his balance seemed all over the place. First, the drunken monkey. You give the illusion of being intoxicated and off guard, but then, he lashed out with a strong, composed strike seemingly out of nowhere, hitting the training post hard before dropping back into a drunken stumble. Next is the frightened monkey. In a smooth transition, Yusuke went from stumbling around to hunched over and compressed, looking around in fear before lashing out with lightning-fast punches and kicks at the post, as if it snuck up on him. He began running around mindlessly before suddenly stiffening up. The Iron Monkey. The man moved slowly and deliberately, delivering strong blows that if connected, Naruto was sure that they would break bones or worse. Each movement was slowed, but the emotionless expression on his new teacher's face was of that of a statue not concerned about pain as he hammered away at the wooden post without flinching. Standing Monkey. Lashing out with a vicious kick, the Jounin began using his arms and leg to assault the post, moving around it in circles and attacking with devastating combinations. Then he stopped, his expression turning to one of pure rage as he began to beat the post without seemingly any regard for safety or defense. Finally, he grabbed the post and ripped it from the ground as he slammed it over and over again. Once his point was made, he stood up and exhaled to calm himself. Finally, the angry monkey. Naruto's jaw was hanging open in awe. Never before had he seen such a way of fighting. That was awesome. I'll be Hokage in no time with that fighting style, believe it. So what are you going to teach me first, the Iron Monkey, or maybe that cool standing monkey with the kicks? Yusuke chuckled again at the genin's excitement. Relax, kid. The monkey fist is made up of all 5 styles, so you'll be learning them all in time. I see Kakashi already has you on the weights, but that sword is only going to be in the way until you get the basics down. So make 20 shadow clones and follow my lead. We don't have all day, you know. The third Hokage stood proudly before the group of Jounin teachers of the remaining genin squads in the village, one of them being his own son. Removing his pipe, the man spoke. As you know, the Chunin exams are but 2 weeks away, and it is our turn to host the event. I've called you all here not only to go over the new security details, but to also to accept nominations for the exams. His eyes trailed over each face as he spoke, noticing for the first time that Kakashi was actually here on time and not sneaking in when he thought no one would notice. The senior Jounin nominated their teams, each one of them with at least a year of experience under their belt and quite a few completed missions. Finally, only the rookie squads were left to report. Boldly enough, it was Kurenai that stepped forward first. Her voice unwavering, she answered the call. I nominate Team 8 for the Chunin exams. It was an unexpected move, one that showed a large amount of confidence in her team, as everyone knew the dangers that the exams were prone to. But she did not falter or look shaken even at the raised eyebrow of the Hokage. Irika, however, was trying to calm himself from worrying. The Chunin was there as an administrator for the exams, but he also felt a personal interest in the future of the ninja who until 4 months ago were still his students. It's okay, Shino and Hinata were both excellent students. Kiba might not have been the brightest when it came to the books, but his taijutsu was good. I'm sure Kurenai was able to round out their weaknesses and drive home their teamwork. Next was Asuma, who lazily called out his choice. I also nominate Team 10 for the Chunin exams. Again, the others were surprised, but the former fire guardian paid them no mind as he took out a cigarette and put it to his lips. As he reached up to light it, he caught the disapproving glare from a certain red-eyed jounin and decided against it. Irika almost spoke out against such a choice, but he held his tongue. Shikamaru is lazy. The only reason he didn't finish higher in the class was because he didn't complete a lot of his assignments. But those that he did do were perfect, even when I made he retake it because I thought he was cheating. Maybe Asuma broke him of that along with Ino's boy phase and Choji's hesitance. They are the second Ino-Shikicho combo, so it should be okay. Standing up, the Chunin was about to pass out the applications for the Jounin to give to their students, but the lazy drawl of one Hataki Kakashi stopped him short. Well, I can't let my cute little genin be the only ones left out among their peers. I nominate Team 7 for the Chunin exams. The scar-faced ninja almost had a stroke before he was finally able to voice his opinion. 0-0-0-0-0. Sakura weaved around the crisp combo delivered by her opponent as she struck out with a side kick to his midsection, forcing him to flip away. She pressed the advantage with a barrage of blows, most of which the green beast was able to avoid, but the last blow he blocked with crossed arms, and even then he was sent skidding back a few inches. Despite the impressive display of power, the bull-haired genin was still smiling. Yash, Sakura, you've grown strong, but I will not be beaten so easily. The pink-haired genin was panting lightly, her body covered with small bruises from the spar. Bring it, Lee. The two clashed again with enthusiasm while Guy watched from the sidelines. This was her last day training under the taijutsu expert, and even though he expected her to shape up considerably, even the mighty beast was surprised by how much she had changed. Gone was the skinny, almost sickly girl that couldn't even finish the warm-up, replaced by a now significantly healthier and stronger young woman who was taking to his taijutsu style with gusto that almost rivaled his protégé's. It was a stretch to say that she and Lee were on equal levels of skill in taijutsu, especially since the boy was still fighting with his weights, but Sakura was now capable of sparring with him for about 3 minutes before Lee bested her. But when she was allowed to use her ninjutsu, Lee often found himself on the losing end of those spars, as Kakashi's student had become quite adept at manipulating the ground to her advantage. Sakura would break Lee's footing by making large spikes appear below him, or slope the area to claim the high ground. But what Guy found himself really laughing at was when Lee made the mistake of taking his eyes of his opponent and found himself neck deep into the dirt with only his head exposed. He remembered when Kakashi pulled that maneuver on him. As it was, Guy's heart swelled with pride for both of his students as Sakura took a punch without complaint for the chance to bury her own fist into Lee's gut. All right, my youthful students, that's enough for today. The pair stopped just before their next exchange, both covered in sweat from the training as they made their way over to the Jounin. Today is the last of our month sessions together, and I must say you've improved beyond all expectations. You can hold your head high with pride, little cherry blossom. Sakura smiled at her teacher. Thanks, Guy-sensei. I'm really glad to have worked under you. And she meant it. Despite the oddities of his personality, the bowl-cut Jounin really knew his way around the human body. Sakura was fit, something that worried her at first because she thought that maybe it meant that she'd be a muscular girl. Instead, she found herself feeling more energetic and stronger than ever before, while still keeping her developing curves. I'll impress Sasuke-kun with how strong I've become, and then he'll invite me to train with him. One step closer to an actual date, CHA. 0-0-0-0-0-0. The last Uchiha was grinning as he avoided the slug-like blows coming from Shino. It wasn't like the bug user wasn't fast in his own right, but Sasuke's speed had gone up considerably, making it that much harder to land a blow on him. You've changed, Sasuke. How? Because your movements are cleaner than before, and you don't hesitate between offense and defense. But it doesn't matter. Why? Because I'm not alone. Another Shino appeared behind Sasuke. Armed raced to attack him, but he simply smirked before lashing out with a kick to send the attacking Shino flying. Turning around fully, Completely ignoring the other Shino, Sasuke formed a single seal and disrupted his chakra, Kai. As the duplicate of his opponent vanished, the Uchiha found himself defending once again as the original pressed the attack once more, his movements enhanced by chakra to close the gap in speed. The Aburame clan might not be well known for their taijutsu, but they are by no means amateurs, and it shows. Were Sasuke just using the Uchiha style, he would no doubt be on the losing end of this exchange without his bloodline active, but thanks to his sensei's training, he was still one step ahead. When Kakashi told his student that his own personal art meshed well with the Uchiha style, he undersold it by a huge margin. Not only did it work well, but it filled the holes in a way that Sasuke wouldn't have even imagined. No longer did he feel clumsy and out of place with his counters, nor was he completely at his opponent's mercy in dictating the pace. While the Uchiha style countered their opponents with predicted movements and flawless precision, Kakashi's style interrupted attacks and broke their balance, leaving them open for offensive measures, something Sasuke was taking full advantage of. Once again, Shino was sent reeling from a blow to the midsection, while Sasuke stood waiting. The thick coat and glasses made him almost unreadable, but it was clear to all that the bug user was running out of steam from the rapid rise and fall of his shoulders. Right, that's enough for today. The two boys brought the fight to a close with a nod before walking over to stand before Kurenai. She gazed at both of the boys, gathering her thoughts on their performance before speaking. You both did well today. Shino, we'll have to work on your taijutsu a little more, don't want you falling behind. Seeing her student nodding once in understanding, she turned her attention to Sasuke. Sasuke, I have to admit I'm impressed. You managed to break every genjutsu I sent your way seamlessly, and you've really picked up Kakashi's style well. I didn't think you'd be able to do it in a month's time, but your determination no doubt played a part in that. You still have plenty of room for improvement with genjutsu, but as you are now, I doubt there is a genin capable of snaring you for long. Like Shino, Sasuke gave her a nod, but he couldn't hide the smirk that came onto his face. Just keep working on your technique, and you'll be fine. All right, that's it for now. Both of you are dismissed for lunch. 0-0-0-0-0-0. Naruto was at his wit's end. Over the past month, he'd read 24 books on tactics and field planning, and at least 2 books on shogi, yet he still could not beat Shikamaru at this accursed game. Sure, the games were getting longer, and he wasn't falling for all of his traps, but the end result was still the same. If Asuma hadn't have thought of a different way to train for tactical thinking, Naruto would have chalked the whole month of it up to a loss. After 2 weeks of Naruto being trounced by Shikamaru, Asuma suggested they do live exercises to give both the boys some exercise with the added bonus of satisfy the blonde's necessity to move around. Using a class of academy students, something that delighted Irika since it would give his students a chance to experience what a mission might feel like, the two were given teams of 8 and an objective. They could formulate the plan, but they were not allowed to go into combat. The results were highly surprising. Despite being terrible at shogi, Naruto proved to posses a very sound tactical mindset. His teams always deployed unique strategies with traps and feints that pushed the genius to his very limit. In the 2 weeks they had done the exercise, Shikamaru only had a 2-win lead over Naruto, something that impressed the blonde's former teacher. Yet it meant nothing on the board as once again he was defeated. I give up. I just can't wrap my head around this game. Shikamaru favored the pouting blonde with a grin. This just goes to show that the game isn't for everyone. You did good though, made me work for it like with Asuma-sensei. Yeah, I'll just have to kick your, but in other ways, believe it. Asuma chuckled at the blonde's resolve. Speaking of other things, how is your training going with my brother? Naruto brightened. I'm doing really good. Yusuke-sensei says I catch on quick, but that might be because of all the shadow clones that I'm using. The monkey fist was very demanding physically, and the results of the training showed on Naruto. He was slightly taller, but only by a few inches. The baby fat was starting to fade from his physique, replaced by lean muscle that gave him a very toned appearance. He had also gotten faster and stronger, able to swing Zabuza's sword with his newfound strength, but he lacked the skill to do so effectively. His balance and coordination improved as well, allowing him to move at breakneck speeds through the wooded areas without much worry of falling or slowing much to turn. Asuma took another drag from his cigarette. That's good to hear. Monkey Fist is notoriously hard to learn, but even without your clones, I'm sure you'd pick up on it through sheer determination. Hopefully you've rubbed some of that work ethic off onto Shikamaru. The lazy genius gave a sigh. It's troublesome, but he's right. If I fall behind, my mom will really harp on me. 0-0-0-0-0-0. Team 7 was in a rare mood when they met up. In 1 month's time, they had grown more powerful, learned new fields, and gained a new edge on the battlefield. Each of them overcame their training and were better for it. So the confident grins on their face when Kakashi arrived late as usual was not surprising to the Scarecrow. Kakashi could relate to their confidence. After all, he had been a ninja for well over 20 years now. Heck, he was Jounin by the age of 12, so he knew all about overcoming obstacles. In fact, he would have been okay with them basking in their achievements were it not for his colleagues. Over the years, as his classmates grew to become Jounin Sensei, there developed a trend. A team would do something great either on a mission or in training, and they would become confident. But once that happened, disaster always followed. Either the genin would become arrogant and thus fail a mission, or the teamwork would suffer because of infighting. Over time, it became an unspoken rule among the teachers. If a genin was starting to show confidence, it was the Jounin's responsibility to give them perspective on their newfound strength. It was cruel and often humiliating for the genin, but they all agreed that it was better for them to be humbled by their teacher in a non-lethal environment rather than allow the enemy to do it. Kakashi had lost nearly everyone he'd ever cared about as a child, and it took a long time before he allowed himself to feel anything again. Team 7 had grown on him. Their quirks and personalities brought him joy, and he would be damned if they died on him because of overconfidence. He began the meeting by congratulating them on a successful month of growth and development before calling them up one by one to display their newly acquired skills. And then he systematically destroyed them. Everything they tried failed. Jinjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu were all rendered ineffective as the man robbed them of their moods and left them panting and bruised on the ground. Naruto lasted the longest because of his freakish stamina, but even he was brought to heel by the powerful Jounin. As they lay sprawled out on the ground, he told them to meet before the memorial stone in 10 minutes, before disappearing from sight and allowing them to vent their frustrations. 10 minutes later they appeared, sitting against the logs and waiting for their teacher to acknowledge them. When he did turn to face them, it was with a look of sobriety. "Tell me, team, why did I do that?" Sasuke glared. He expected it from the Uchiha who valued his pride over almost anything else, but not from Sakura, who was also radiating anger. Only Naruto seemed to actually pause and think about what had occurred. He would have to thank Asuma for his work with the boy, as he did not have to wait long. "You were trying to teach us a lesson. Maybe something about training more?" Kakashi favored him with an eye smile. "Close, but no. I was trying to teach you that no matter how good you think you are, no matter how powerful you've become, there will always be someone faster, stronger, smarter, or better than you. Constantly pushing yourself helps slim the number, but this is the unavoidable truth." He let that sink in. Their faces varied, but none of them spoke to refute the words, and for good reason. Whether they admitted it or not, all of them had expected the gap between them and their sensei to close just a little. He just demonstrated in spectacular fashion that it had not. Naruto shook his head before speaking again. "But I don't get it. Are you trying to tell us that you'll always be stronger than us? Or that Genin can never beat a Jounin?" "No." All heads turned to Sasuke, who was looking at Kakashi with realization on his face. "He was trying to teach us that individually we can be beaten." Kakashi nearly shit his pants in surprise, and it showed on his face. "I don't believe it. Am I actually getting through to you, Sasuke?" The Uchiha just glared, but even he couldn't hide the small redness of his cheeks. "I do listen. You had us train harder in this month than ever before, pushing us to become stronger and more well-rounded. But then you took us one by one and beat us down. The only time you ever did that was when we took the bell test. You want to make sure that you drive it home that no matter how strong we get individually, we will always need teamwork to survive." Sakura and Naruto both looked at their teammate with wide eyes. It made sense, of course. Break them down before molding them together with the bond of comrades. But hearing the lesson and learning it were two different things. The silver-haired Jounin schooled his features, which wasn't a hard thing to do when most of your face is covered, to hide the pride he felt for his team. Just 6 months ago, they couldn't catch a cat without squabbling. Sakura was pathetically weak, Naruto couldn't think his way out of a paper bag, and Sasuke wouldn't be caught dead suggesting teamwork to deal with an enemy. Now they were stronger and maturing, and it was all because of his tutelage. Yes, that's mostly it. There might come a time when you are forced to work alone. Should that happen, then yes, you need to be strong in order to survive. But I can only pray that it never happens while you're Genin. I wanted you guys to get stronger not just for yourselves, but for the team as well. The stronger you are, the stronger Team 7 becomes, but only if you can use those skills in coordination with your teammates. That's why for the next 2 weeks, we're going to focus solely on team training. Allow me to show you just how much more powerful you are when you work together. Now let's get started, shall we? Kakashi watched from branch as his Genin engaged in a three-way spar. They had limited themselves to just taijutsu to avoid a barrage of clones from Naruto, but that just left them with a more contained chaotic mess. At first, it was Sakura and Naruto against Sasuke. The two had him pinged as a bigger threat, and rightfully so, because he was able to evade them for a full minute before they landed a clean hit on him. But Naruto was a little too enthusiastic about scoring a hit, and the lapse in attention was rewarded by Sakura burying her fist into the side of his face with impressive force. From there, it was a free-for-all, but it was clear that Naruto and Sasuke still held a lead over her in that category. He lingered a little longer watching the fight play out, but when Sakura was a little slow on her block and ate a uppercut to the abdomen, Kakashi decided that it was time to make himself known. One swirl of leaves later, and the three Genin were looking at him owlishly with their various actions frozen in place. Well, that's one way to start the day, but maybe fighting should wait until a little later. After all, don't want to tire yourselves out before a mission. A few minutes later, and the three of them were composed and sitting on the ground. Now then, I think you should know that in 2 weeks' time the Chunin exams will begin. Team 7 has been registered to enter along with the other rookies. Kakashi left out the part of it being voluntary, but figured if any of them expressed a concern, he'd pony up the information. Sasuke smirked, already excited at the prospect of facing strong opponents and a bump in rank. Sakura looked quizzical, no doubt aware at how rare it is for rookies, not even a full year out of the academy, to be in the Chunin exam. And Naruto looked confused. What are the Chunin exams? Sakura looked scandalous. Seriously, Naruto? Did you learn anything at the academy? Sasuke shook his head. Doaho. Hey, that's not your catchphrase. Do. Better, you bastard. Kakashi coughed, a grin on his face at the antics of his team. Naruto, the Chunin exams are one of the ways the village promotes Genin to the rank of Chunin. You compete alongside your teammates against other teams in a series of tasks for a chance at this promotion. Naruto instantly brightened. All right, so all we have to do is kick the crap out of everyone else, and I'll be one step closer to Hokage. The Jounin simply smiled, something like that. Sakura ignored the blonde's excitement. Nay, Kakashi-sensei, aren't we a little inexperienced to participate in those exams? Kakashi lifted his brow as he watched Sasuke give his teammate a murderous glare before speaking. You're not confident in your abilities? Sakura balked under Sasuke's glare, but was determined to say her piece. It's just, we barely survived our last mission against Zabuza and Haku. We've been training hard the last month, but is it really enough to warrant an increase in rank? Sasuke was unimpressed with her reasoning. Zabuza was a Jounin, and we managed to drive him off, and the dobe was enough to hold off Haku. Yeah, but only after he almost killed you. If Haku was more hardened, then you'd be dead, Sasuke-kun. I've gotten stronger since that mission, we all have. And Haku wasn't even a Jounin. At most he was Chunin level, a level of skill that most of the participants will be on. Sasuke scowled, his voice coming in a harsh whisper. I have the Sharingan. I was able to see and avoid his strikes. If Naruto hadn't been so weak, then maybe I wouldn't have had to take the blow for him. And there it was, What little camaraderie between Team 7 had built over the past 6 months wasn't enough to completely erase the arrogance of the Uchiha survivor. Sakura looked sheepish, her nerve lost as she stole a glance at Naruto, whose face was uncharacteristically blank. Kakashi mentally sighed, just when I thought we were over the hump. Sasuke dash. You're right. Kakashi's mouth slowly closed as he and the rest of Team 7 turned to the blonde, who was looking at Sasuke with resolve plain in his eyes. The blonde stood and placed his hand onto his sword sticking out of the ground. I was weak and too stupid to see what I should have done back then. Even after the Demon Brothers, after the first encounter with Zabuza, I still behaved like a kid playing ninja, and it could have cost you your life. But they helped me see what it means to really be a ninja, to fight with not just your life on the line, but with the lives of your teammates as well. So that's why, before Kakashi could blink, Naruto slid his hand down the edge of the blade, drawing blood which gleamed in the morning sun. That's why I'm making this promise to all of you. I'll never allow my own weakness to endanger Team 7 ever again. Believe it. I'll train harder than ever, so have faith in me. If not as my friend, then as my comrade. Sasuke started at the blonde with pensive eyes, trying to determine the weight of his words. But before he could speak, Sakura was standing beside him, a kunai in hand that she used to slash open her palm. With a slight hiss of pain, he's right. I don't know about you, Sasuke, but neither of us took this as seriously as we should, and it wasn't fair to either you or Kakashi-sensei. So I'll make that promise too. I won't readily become a burden to my teammates ever again. Even if it means extra training for a whole year before I catch up, you can count on me, as your comrade. The gears in the Uchiha's head were turning rapidly. Never before had he been in a situation like this. Admittedly, they were both getting better, at least in taijutsu. Their earlier spar showed him that. Working together, the two of them managed to score a clean hit, though his Sharingan wasn't active. Working together. Teamwork rescued Kakashi from Zabuza. Teamwork helped him activate his bloodline. Would teamwork allow him to slay his brother? Raising to his feet, Sasuke walked over and removed a kunai from his pouch before following suit and slashing open his palm to get the blood flowing. I don't have time for friends or pleasantries. Like I said before, my ambition is to avenge my clan by killing Itachi. Nothing else really matters until then. I can't say that we'll be friends or anything else, but we're Team 7. Nothing is going to change that. If you're promising to give it everything you've got from this point on, then I'll swear to believe in the both of you in return. He answered Sakura's gentle smile and Naruto's grin with a smirk of his own, each with their fist extended to meet up in the middle as the blood dripped between their fingers. Ahem. Far be it from me to interrupt a team-building exercise, but we should really cover those wounds and get back to the matter at hand. With their fears put to rest, Team 7 officially registered to enter the Chunin exams. Kakashi, true to his word, worked them to exhaustion with several mock missions, spars, and survival exercises, all with the aim to build on what skills they already possessed. Now 2 weeks had passed, and Kakashi had given them the day off to rest and prepare for the start of the exams. The day found Naruto departing from a long overdue visit to his favorite ramen stand in the world, a smile on his face with a belly full of mouth-watering delicacy. The blonde was having a great day. He had survived the hellish training from Kakashi and even managed to polish up the monkey fist style to the point that even Sasuke with his Sharingan had trouble defending the blows. Better yet, his Kenjutsu had improved from the continued use. He reached back for the hilt of his sword with a grin, the hilt along with a small portion of the blade separated from the main blade. A few days ago, he'd tried to emulate Zabuza's entrance, a feat he only barely managed to pull off with his current strength. However, he underestimated just how thick the trees surrounding the village were and instead found the blade stuck deep within the bark. He pulled with all his might and was rewarded when the blade seemingly broke off with a large portion of it still embedded. His wails of panic were enough to draw Kakashi's attention, who upon further inspecting the damage found that this was a function of the blade. With a little chakra applied on the hilt, he could snap the sword back to its full length in no time at all, making it much easier for him to carry around. Naruto was brought to a halt as a wave of killing intent washed over him. Instantly his hand was moved to the hilt of his sword, as he turned to find the source of the malicious energy. Standing a few feet away was a dark-skinned boy with short black hair and a headband marked from the land of the hidden mist tied around his forehead. He wore a pair of gray cargo pants with various pockets no doubt filled with ninja tools, a black shirt, and strapped to his back was a sword significantly shorter than Naruto's. The ninja stared at Naruto with the utmost hatred, something that Naruto had seen far too often. The blonde didn't back down, though. Instead, he glared back with courage and determination. "What's your problem?" The boy's frown deepened as he bit out a response. "As if you don't know. That sword is the Kubikirabocho, is it not? Its owner is Zabuza Momochi, a man known through the land as the demon of the hidden mist. So tell me why it's strapped to your back instead of his." Now it was Naruto's turn to frown as he realized just what was going on. "My team encountered Zabuza on a mission not too long ago. He was hired by a thug named Gato to kill our target. It was a mess, but in the end Zabuza was beaten by my sensei and Haku was killed. But it turned out Gato was just using them and planned to betray them all along. Once Zabuza found out, he charged the man and his small militia and killed him, but died as a result of his injuries from the earlier battle." "So you took his sword as a trophy? I'll not have the blade of such an excellent ninja wielded by some snot-nosed punk." The boy reached back towards his blade, but was stopped as a girl with purple eyes and brown hair caught his hand midway. Her headband the same as his. "Rosen, what do you think you're doing? If you get into a fight before the exams, you know it'll get us thrown out. Worse, it might make things difficult for Mizukage-sama." Rosen's features softened slightly before he cursed. "Do you realize what he has, Kasumi? Do you even care?" Naruto watched her purple eyes flicker briefly to his back, and then to his own ocean blues before she closed her eyes and slugged Rosen on the arm. Hard. "Of course I care, you idiot. But you can't jeopardize the entire village for petty revenge, not after coming so far. You do anything that'll cause trouble, and I'll personally mutilate you myself, understood?" Rubbing his arm and glaring at the ground embarrassed, Rosen mumbled his agreement. "All right, now come on. Sensei and Setsuna are waiting." With one final glance towards Naruto, she turned and departed back into the crowd. Rosen grumbled under his breath before locking eyes with Naruto once again. "What's your name, thief, or are you too ashamed to speak it?" Now it was Naruto's turn to growl. "Naruto Uzumaki is no thief, believe it." For a moment, Naruto the other ninja's face from anger to surprise, but it was gone in an instant. "Naruto Uzumaki. My name is Rosen Nagano, and I'll be coming for that blade soon enough, thief." Before Naruto could respond, he was gone, mixed into the crowd like his teammate before him. The blonde was tempted to give chase and resolve the situation, but even he doubted such a thing would end without violence. "The old man would kill me if he found out I was picking a fight with a foreign ninja. Guess I'll just have to keep my eyes and ears open." Frowning, Naruto continued towards the academy to meet up with Konohamaru and his friends. Kakashi let out a giggle as he read his favorite book in a tree near the outskirts of the academy. It was relatively secluded, and since he'd give his team the day off with no active missions to pursue, he was taking the time to catch up on his reading. Unfortunately, his alone time was invaded by another presence. He acted casually enough, not even batting an eye as he flipped to another page and gave another giggle of delight as he tried to determine just who it was that thought they could sneak up on an experienced jounin in his own town. But then, well, I'll be. "It's been a long time, Jiraiya-sama." A few branches down sat a white-haired man with vibrant red clothes, a scroll on his back, and a headband with small horns complete with the symbol for oil etched into it. He looked to be in his early 50s, but his eyes still danced with the gleam of youthful energy with a smile that would make Guy proud. "Kakashi, still sharp as ever, I see." The masked man smiled. "Well, taking on a team hasn't lost me my edge yet." Then in a more serious tone, "Are you here to check up on your godson?" Jiraiya's smile faltered just a bit. "Yeah, among other things. Don't worry, I'm not here to steal the brat from you. He's yours to train for the most part, even if I do want to teach him a few things. I'm sure you'll be impressed with his progress. He's had quite an influence on both of his teammates, and they on him. No doubt, you're entering them in the exam along with the others. I don't see a reason not to. They'll benefit from the experience." Jiraiya sighed. "We'll need to be on our toes. There are things shifting around behind the scenes. and more than that, a member of the Uzumaki clan has resurfaced. That caught Kakashi's attention. His book forgotten, he rounded to meet eyes with the Sannin. Uzumaki? They've been in the wind for decades now, hiding from the hunters. Kiri, Humo, and IWA have kill-on-sight orders for anyone from the clan. Well, you can cross Kiri off the list. They sent a single team lead by Ortega Uzumaki. I'm actually on my way to see Sensei about it. Thought you'd want the heads up. A breeze filled the silence, and then, you think he's legitimate? For an Uzumaki to join one of the villages that brought ruin and death to the clan seems a little far-fetched. We have to treat him as such. Say what you will about them, but the Uzumaki have vanished from sight. In all my travels, I've only come across one, but that doesn't mean they aren't out there. He's got the hair, but more than that I cannot say. Kakashi could only nod, his eyes staring into the distance as he digested the information. If Naruto finds out from another source, it'll be difficult to gauge his reaction. It'd be best if either I or Hokage-sama broke the news to him. At least then we can keep him from doing something rash. Jiraiya agreed. I'll pass it on. Keep your ear to the ground. I'm sure we'll be in touch. Kakashi's voice caught him before he made his departure. Jiraiya. It's good to see you again. The childlike smile returned to his face. It's good to be back. My research has been neglected for far too long. And with that, he was gone in a swirl of leaves, leaving behind a chuckling Kakashi. In an undisclosed part of the village hidden in the leaves sat three of the most powerful men the county, if not the whole elemental nations, had to offer. Sarutobi Hiruzen, known to the current generation as the third Hokage and previous generations as the Professor, a shinobi capable of utilizing any ninjutsu regardless of element. To his left sat Danzo Shimura, a close friend and rival of the third, the right side of his body completely covered from the bandages on his head to the heavy kimono and thick sandals. A true master of stealth and subterfuge, Danzo, unlike the others, has no place in any bingo book, and only a select few know how strong he truly is. Across from him was Jiraiya of the Sannin, a gifted individual whose level of skill made him a worthy candidate for Hokage even if he was hell-bent on staying out from under the hat. Now he managed a spy network that spanned the elemental nations twice over. Very few could match his skill with gathering intel, and even fewer could match him on the battlefield. The third cleared his throat. What is there to report? Danzo and Jiraiya shared a look before the former gave a slow nod, prompting Jiraiya to begin. From IWA and Kumo, there is nothing. All signs indicate that IWA is still licking their wounds, while Kumo has kept the standard. Kirigakure is still a mystery, but their participation in these exams suggests that their civil war is over. But if Yagura remains the Mizukage is unclear, though that's unlikely since they have an Uzumaki in the ranks. Suna is mobilizing. My sources are moving for more intel, but it's all need to know for now. However, a new village has been established, the village hidden in the sound run by Orochimaru. Hiruzen sighed. His student was still up to no good, it seemed. Danzo? The Warhawk gripped his cane with his visible arm. My sources confirm much of what Jiraiya has said, but my agent has infiltrated Suna and confirmed that the Kazekage has met with the Otokage, Orochimaru, at least 3 times. Signs point to betrayal from Suna in a combined attack with this sound village. The Hokage's frown deepened. He knew Orochimaru and to some extent Raza. Both were cautious and would only move if they felt assured of victory. So we must contest with the Kazekage and Orochimaru. Our number has recovered greatly since the Kyuubi attack. What kind of numbers can we expect? Jiraiya smiled. Sound is a new village. They're mostly Genin and Chunin level with very few Jounin from the bingo books. B ranks mostly. The only real threat would be Orochimaru's experiments and the snake bastard himself. Likewise, Danzo looked unconcerned. Suna is much of the same. Though they carry more experienced ninja, most are older and past their prime. In fact, the main reason Suna remains one of the Great Five is because of their placement in the desert and how hard it would be to wage war there. Combined, they have just enough might to challenge us, though we have the Kyuubi and Uchiha incident to thank for that. I would imagine they seek to ambush us and kill a majority of our forces in a surprise attack. But without that element, I believe your student speaks true that only the Kazakage and the traitor are of particular concern. Then we will move ahead to give ourselves the advantage. We will begin to recall our jounin from the field, taking only the most necessary amount of missions to keep up appearances. The Chunin exams have always been notoriously rough. It is bad timing on their part that training ground 44 to cut the number of participants even further to our advantage given the number of teams from our village entered. He paused. We'll have to get our forces ready and on alert, but that won't be difficult. I'll pass this information on to Shikaku. I trust you'll maneuver route into place. Sound will be much easier to infiltrate than Suna. Their forces are gathered from criminals, most of which can be easily killed and replaced with one of ours. Sabutori, I hope you can appreciate that this attack is only possible because of your soft-handed treatment with the other countries. Had it been Kumo or IWA who joined in, then we would be hard-pressed to survive this mess. The Sannin moved to defend his teacher, but the Hokage stayed him off with emotion before turning to speak with his friend and rival. You might be right, but betrayal, though the quality of a ninja, is still frowned upon. We've done nothing to cross Suna, and now they seek to attack us. We will show the world how we deal with such actions with unrelenting force, and remind the other nations just why they should not associate weakness with mercy. Danzo only gave a grunt in response, but even he could not hide the twinge from the corner of his mouth from his old friend. Jiraiya cleared his throat. There is one more thing, Ortega Uzumaki. I wish I could say his coming here was just coincidence, but given the open alliance that once stood between Uzumaki and the Leaf, I would doubt that. There are only two reasons he is here, family or politics. The Hokage lit his pipe and took a few puffs. Only Kushina remained in the village when Whirlpool was attacked, and none have returned since. The only family would be Naruto, and given his escapades in the Land of Waves against Zabuza, it is highly possible that he heard about the boy and is seeking him out. On the political side, Kirigakure was hesitantly neutral in the past, and with the eruption of their civil war, no doubt, they have been left weakened. What better way to boost standing with the Leaf than with a member of one of their greatest allies? Has he showed any attempt of locating Naruto? Danzo fielded the question. One of my agents witnessed an encounter between one of the genin from Kiri and Uzumaki. The boy carries Zabuza's sword. It was bound to attract their attention. They exchanged names, so no doubt this Ortega knows of his existence. I suggest we get ahead of this, sensei. Perhaps allow Kakashi to inform him, or maybe even take the time to tell him yourself since he is close with you. The boy will no doubt seek out Ortega should he catch wind of him, especially since he grew up an orphan. Danzo's expression soured, but he said nothing. The third continued to puff on his pipe. Very well. If that's all, then I think I'll go talk with young Naruto and Kakashi about this before getting everything else underway. Sasuke sat before his family home as the sun waned in the distant sky, eyes on the door which had gathered a fine layer of dust and debris. Very seldom did he visit the Uchiha compound. The images of the Jinjutsu burned into his mind by his traitor of a brother made him weary, and it hurt not to hear the voices of his cousins all around. Such a lively place brought to silence by one man in one night. Now the last Uchiha only visited to bring himself focus, to remember what was taken from him and rekindle the flame of vengeance that burned in his heart. Mother, father, the Chunin exams start tomorrow, and with it a chance to bring glory and honor to the clan. My team is ready, I am ready, and once it's over I'll have taken another step closer towards bringing Itachi to justice. I've studied the archives, learned all I could, and I promise that nothing will stand in my way of fulfilling my goal and avenging you all. It is for this purpose that I dedicate my life and energy. He was an avenger. Everything else fell to the wayside, including his own childhood and friendship with others. It was a path he would eagerly walk alone. And yet he wasn't alone. Team 7 stood beside him, supporting him and making him stronger. Sasuke's thoughts turned to Sakura, an annoying fan who didn't take the academy or the path of a ninja seriously. Sure, she was book smart, but Sasuke would bet that it was only an attempt to grab his attention, a cheap disguise to hide her pleas of courtship. But she changed recently. She was still the fangirl, still trying to gain his favor, but she was also strong and determined not to be a burden to him. Her taijutsu and ninjutsu improved greatly, though it wasn't much of a surprise since they were nearly non-existent before. One time he'd even spied on her, making sure that she could not possibly sense him, and found that she was dedicated to her new training routine even without him present. It left an impression, to say the least. And then there was Naruto. Sasuke couldn't fight the smirk that broke onto his face from the thought of his blonde teammate. The boy was quickly becoming a rival with his newly acquired skills. Back in the academy, he'd been a fool, a one-sided rivalry that Sasuke gave no thought to. But since Wave, things had changed. They'd trained together, fought together, and though he was still the dope, Sasuke found him being constantly surprised by his tenacity. Like Sakura, Naruto had increased dramatically, and while he knew shadow clones helped the process, the Uchiha was impressed by his work ethic and sheer determination. Naruto was untalented, but he'd work 1,000 times harder if it meant closing the distance just an inch. Combine that with his unpredictability, and what was left could be called a ninja, and to Sasuke, a rival. Comrades. Naruto stood across from the Hokage with an uncharacteristically serious expression. He turned to his sensei, who was standing against the wall to his left, the orange book absent as he gazed back at him with a solemn expression. When the blonde heard he is summoned by the Hokage, he thought that it was to wish him luck in the exams, or perhaps just to catch up since they had not had the opportunity since his graduation from the academy. Never in a million years did he expect the conversation to be about family. So, I'm not alone? The two adults exchanged a look, neither missing the relieved tone in his voice. Naruto-kun, you were never alone. Naruto gave a sad smile. I know, Gigi, but it wasn't the same. You did your best, but there were still a lot of lonely days, a lot of sad meals, and uncelebrated birthdays. And the villagers, the way they looked at me. Before I found out about the fox, I thought that maybe the Uzumaki had betrayed the village, that I was hated because of my parents. But it isn't true, and there is another Uzumaki here, from my parents' clan. When can I meet him? Once again a shared look, but this time it was Kakashi who answered. Well, we could arrange a meet, but the real reason we're telling you this is because there is a chance he might have an ulterior motive for being here. While he is an Uzumaki, he did not come to the Leaf even with the treaty we had with Whirlpool, but instead found himself in Kirigakure, one of the villages responsible for its destruction. Right now he is a ninja from an unallied country, but surely he knows what the Uzumaki mean to the Leaf. But he's family. Even if that might be true, I still want to meet him. The determination in his voice was like steel, and both his superiors knew that when Naruto spoke like that, little would stop him or change his mind. Luckily, they had planned for this. We thought you might feel this way. The Hokage leaned over and pressed a button onto his desk. Send in our guest, please. The door opened as Naruto turned, revealing a pair of Leaf Ninja escorting a red-headed man into the office. The man looked to be around Kakashi's age, with dark red hair and green eyes which held a firm gaze which scanned the room, locking onto Naruto before lifting to the Hokage. He gave a deep bow before speaking. Hokage-sama, it is an honor and a pleasure to meet you. His voice was rich and thick with a foreign accent that Naruto had never heard before. Sabutori gave a warm smile. The pleasure is mine, Uzumaki-san. It has been far too long since I've seen that unique red hair that was once common behind these walls. The man gave a polite nod. To be honest, Hokage-sama, there is a reason I was sent here, but I'm sure you've already guessed as much. Kakashi blinked at the frank nature of the man, but Sabutori took it with a smile. I had a few ideas. It is no secret that Kirigakure has been locked in a state of civil war for quite some time, but Yagura's oppression has been removed, and a new Mizukage now holds the reins of the village. Though they will want to reveal the identity at a later time, it was decided that our presence has been missing from the Chunin exams for far too long. They know of my heritage and the alliance that once stood between the land of whirlpools and the Leaf Village, so naturally they decided to send my team, though they are qualified for the exams, naturally. Naruto tried to keep up with the conversation, but too much slacking in the academy left him woefully uninformed. Once again the Hokage spoke. Is that so? I am glad the bloodshed has ended, and I look forward to meeting the new Mizukage, especially since they saw fit to shelter a former ally. You seem a person who loathes beating around the bush, so if you don't mind, could you explain how you came to serve Kirigakure? and the Mizukage? Surely you know of their role in the attack on your clan. Ortega grimaced. Yes, I am very much aware. Under normal circumstances, Kirigakure would be my enemy. But there is information that I am not at liberty to discuss, Hokage-sama. All I can say is that the rebels saved my life, and in doing so earned my once their enemy became known to me. I swore that I would join their ranks to unmask him to the world. The venom in his voice was not easily missed, but soon his features softened as his eyes once again fell to Naruto. But I leave that for Mizukage-sama to speak about. I was informed by my student that there was a ninja by the name of Uzumaki Naruto in the Leaf Village. Am I correct to assume that this is he? Sabutori nodded. You are correct. This is Naruto Uzumaki, the last remaining in behind our walls. Naruto tried not to fidget as Ortega gazed at him, his eyes roaming over him looking for what the blonde did not know. After what felt like a decade, the older man once again turned his attention to the Hokage as he tapped the left side of his chest. May I? The Kage gave his consent, and Ortega snaked a hand into his vest and removed a scroll. I don't doubt your claim of Uzumaki blood, but you have to understand that many have tried to gain the knowledge of our clan's most powerful seals and jutsu. It was why we were attacked after all. Before our village fell, we managed to catalog every branch of our family, both ninja and civilian alike. It was a S-rank secret, one that is never to be shared lightly. A few scrolls were given to the most powerful of ninja when the battle was deemed lost in hopes that once we managed to shake off our attackers and lick our wounds, we could find our hidden brethren and rebuild. Obviously, that has proved much more difficult than any of us could have foreseen. Turning to Naruto, he opened the scroll to reveal not names, but smudges of dried blood. But upon closer inspection, the boy realized that it was not a smudge, but a fingerprint. This scroll is linked to the Master Scroll, hidden away from the world. By supplying it with blood, it will confirm that you are in fact an Uzumaki. Naruto looked at the scroll, then to his teacher, and finally his surrogate grandfather, questions in his eyes. Kakashi gave him a gentle smile through his mask, while Sabutori nodded. It is up to you, Naruto-kun. You don't have to, but I dare say you will learn little else than what the village records can provide if you do not. Hokage-sama is correct. Blue eyes met green as young Uzumaki stared at old. Those of us who are old enough to remember our ways guard them viciously. Many of our kind died so that it would not fall into the hands of our enemies, and it is still so today. The teen hesitated. What if he really wasn't an Uzumaki? What if there had been some mistake? But he quelled those fears with the same grit and determination that he used back in the academy. No matter what some stupid scroll decides, I'm Naruto, Uzumaki, believe it. Biting his thumb the way they taught him in school, Naruto waited for the blood to pool before pressing his finger firmly onto the paper. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The blood simply absorbed into the paper. But then his blood began to glow with chakra, a fact that pleased Ortega, who now wore a warm smile. It is nice to meet you, cousin. Oh yeah, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, believe it. The adults shared a laugh at his antics before he spoke up again with renewed vigor. So what happens now, cousin? Are you going to show me super awesome jutsu that my parents knew? Ortega gave a hearty laugh. Perhaps one day. You are in a delicate situation, cousin. Were you just a civilian, I would have taken you under my wing and taught you our ways should you wish to learn them. He and the Hokage's eyes met with a flash. But as a ninja for the Leaf Village, you have an obligation to remain here. Naruto's mood dropped at that. So I won't be able to spend time with you or learn anything about my clan since I'm already a ninja for Konoha? Of course you'll be able to, but just not right at this moment. If all goes well, I'm sure we'll be able to work something out. You'll be busy with the Chunin exams though, and while I'd like to see family succeed, you'll still have to compete against my students, so it won't be easy. Kakashi pushed himself off the wall. He's right, Naruto. Those exams are no joke, they'll need your full attention if you want to pass. Why don't we let Hokage-sama and Uzumaki-sen talk? I'll take you home, and you can get a good night of rest before the big day tomorrow. You'll need it. It would prove to be sound advice. Team 7 walked into one of the academy classrooms and was overwhelmed by both a feeling of nostalgia and then intensity of several pairs of eyes turning to look at their competition. Naruto couldn't help the smirk that crossed his face when people seemed to realize just whose sword was strapped to his back. So it's true. All of the rookies are in the exams. Shikamaru's voice caught their attention to the gathering of their classmates who were watching them with smiles. They all walked over to chat with familiar faces. The hell is that on your back, Naruto? Kiba had pushed his way to the blonde and admired the sword strapped to his back. Didn't think anyone was crazy enough to give something that sharp to the class idiot. On his head, Akamaru gave a bark of agreement. Better watch it, dog breath, or maybe I'll put you on the receiving end of it. PSH as if. You'll need more than some butter knife to take on me and Akamaru. The rookies engaged in easy conversation about what the exams would hold, but none of them were foolish enough to drop their guard, and it showed when one silver-haired genin with glasses approached them. Hey, you rookies should keep it down. Not all of us are friendly here. Sasuke turned his gaze to the newcomer, taking stock of his appearance for signs of weakness and strengths. He looked to be about 3 or 4 years older, but the easy smile and soft tone of voice made him appear younger. And who are you exactly? The boy smiled at him. The name's Kabuto. I'm a leaf genin just like you. Sakura pipped up at that. Is this your first time taking the exam, Kabuto-san? At this his smile went a little lopsided. Actually, it's my 7th. Normally it doesn't take so long, but I've just had a string of bad luck. Shikamaru grimaced. 7 times? What a drag. It'd almost make it less of a hassle to pass it this first time. Everyone else nodded in agreement. No way did they want to fail like that. Kabuto seemed to read the pity in their eyes. Whoa, it's not all that bad. By now I know what to expect, and I've been able to gather a ton of information about this year's competition. Go on, give me a name, and I'll show you their skills with my ninja info cards. The rookies exchanged a look before Shikamaru called out, Naruto Uzumaki. Hey, quit crying. It's just a test to see if this information is valid. You know your own track record, and so do we for the most part. Kabuto flipped through his cards before taking one from the deck. Here we are, Uzumaki Naruto. Has completed 10 D-rank missions and 1 A-rank mission, although it looks like it was bumped up from a C rank. Dead last in his year from the academy, and a member of Team 7 with Kakashi Hitaki as Jounin instructor with Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno as his teammates. Naruto grumbled at the dead last comment on his record, but otherwise the information was spot on. Before anyone else could call out, Sasuke gave a name, Gaara Sabaku. The rest of Team 7 turned to give him a look, but he just shook his head. They would talk about it later. Okay, Sabaku Gaara. Kabuto read the card and gave a low whistle. Well, he's no rookie. Completed 12 C ranks and a B rank alone. But what really blows my mind is that he's apparently never been injured on a mission. Teammates are his siblings, Kankuro and Temari, with Jounin instructor listed as Baki. They murmured in amazement as they looked for the boy pictured on the card. Oddly enough, he was staring at them from across the room. His face betrayed nothing, just indifference and possibly boredom. But there was an unfamiliar light in his eyes that made Naruto's hair stand on end. Kabuto seemed to think the same. I think I'll avoid him as much as possible. Okay, anyone else want to turn? Once again the group tried to come up with a name, but then Naruto remembered his exchange from yesterday. Yeah, I got one. Rosen Nagano. This time Kabuto shifted through his deck 3 times before frowning. I don't have that one. You sure that's the name? Yeah, I just met him yesterday. He's from the Hidden Mist village. Oh, that explains it. The Hidden Mist have been in a civil war for a while. I haven't seen them in the exam since my very first time, so naturally, I don't have any information on them. Sorry about that. Naruto furrowed his brow before he spoke again. Well, do you have anyone else with the name Uzumaki? Kabuto's gaze seemed to turn icy for a moment, but then the light shifted as he adjusted his glasses and he searched his deck. No, it doesn't look like it. The Uzumaki clan are supposedly extinct, though I suppose there might be a few hiding out since the war. You hoping to find family, I take it. The blonde couldn't help but feel a little crestfallen. Something like that. Shrugging off the prying eyes of his team and friends, Naruto spent a few moments scanning the crowd while everyone else talked with Kabuto, but the sound of running caught his attention. Hey, watch it. To be fair, Kabuto reacted well, avoiding the punch with ease even though it was from his blind spot. But though no blow landed, he was soon on his knees in agony as blood began to leak from his ears. The gray-coated genin with bandages on his face seemed to delight in his pain. Those who disrespect the Sound Village will receive no mercy. The rest of you Leaf Ninja had better remember that. Kiba had moved to retaliate, but before he could, a booming voice called out, "Settle down and shut up. The Chunin exam starts now." At the front of the room, standing at least 6 feet tall, was a building of a man in a trench coat and a banana on his head. Somewhere in the room a voice called out in alarm, "Boy, he bout to do it." Team 7 stood before the gates, separating them from a massive forest that appeared to hold nothing but despair for those who entered. They could not help but agree with the nickname Forest of Death given by the proctor, a purple-haired kunoichi with bad fashion sense and a gray body. Naruto snorted as he remembered her grand entrance after the first test, if you could even call it a test. Truth be told, he was a little underwhelmed. The test would have been way harder if he actually had to answer the questions or try to cheat. But with Hinata beside him, things were ridiculously easy. The supposed 10th question was a nice twist, and a lot of teams failed because of it. Team 8 would have failed. Hinata was shakily raising her hand, but Naruto simply took it into his own to keep her from doing so. I wonder why she was so hot. Maybe a fever. In the end, all the rookies had passed, and while Naruto was hoping that Gaara would fail, they too were now in the second round of the Chunin exams. Hi's thoughts were interrupted by the ever-brooding Sasuke. "Dobe, pay attention." The blonde glanced at his teammate and stuck out his tongue. "I'm always paying attention, team." Ichinen, then what was I just talking about? The scroll? Dope. Well, you were. Naruto. Rubbing the back of his head as Sakura gave him a withering glare, Naruto apologized as Sasuke continued. "Teams are spread out pretty evenly, but we have to be careful. We're rookies, so we automatically have a target on our back as an easy mark. It's both a drawback and an advantage, though, since people will be less likely to flee from us, no doubt underestimating our abilities." He paused to make sure both of them were paying attention. "We hit them hard and fast. If what the proctor said is true, then we shouldn't linger in the forest too long, otherwise we're in danger of the wildlife. We have 5 days to get this done. I want us in the tower in 3. Sakura nodded. "I think the first day should be spent finding a water supply and suitable camping area. We can trap it and use it as a temporary base if we get separated. I wish we knew where teams 8 and 10 were. Then we could meet up and tackle this as a group." "Yeah, but we won't have to worry about them. Kiba's a jerk, but he's skilled. Between him, Hinata, and Shino, there shouldn't be much they can't handle. Same goes for Shikamaru and Choji." Naruto paused to scratch his head. "Still, I think we should make it a point to avoid attacking Konoha teams unless there is no other choice. That and the Sand team with Gaara. There is something about that guy that makes my skin crawl, and I'd rather not find out what it is in the forest." Sasuke smirked. "Sacred dope. You wish, team. I'm just doing this so I won't have to save you, believe it." Sakura interrupted before they could really get going. "We'll have to always travel together to scout out the area. Kakashi-sensei gave us a little training on that, but it will still be rough with so many enemies to look out for." At this, Naruto smirked. "Actually, I have an idea about that. This sucks. Why did Sakura-chan and Sasuke team leave me to make camp? I should be out there kicking people's teeth in, not setting up camp and protecting this stupid scroll." Naruto grumbled loudly as he went around picking up the various sticks scattered across the ground and placing them in the middle of the clearing. His sword was resting against the tree, seemingly mocking him as he continued to do menial tasks alone. Above him, 3 masked rain ninjas watched with hungry eyes. They signaled each other silently before they descended to the ground, trapping Naruto in the middle of them. "Well, maybe we could help with that last part." The blonde jumped in surprise, letting the sticks fall to the ground before he turned towards the one who spoke. He noticed their numbers and scowled as his sword sat comfortably behind them. "Who the hell are you guys?" "Doesn't matter. Hand over the scroll, and maybe we'll give you a quick death." The 3 of them laughed menacingly as the blonde gulped and took a step back. But then he smirked and their confidence faltered. "All we needed to know." Suddenly, there was a massive amount of smoke as each stick on the ground poofed to reveal countless blonde-haired shinobi surrounding the 3 ninja. They had a moment to look horrified before they were pounced on and clobbered. A few seconds later, they were knocked out and tied up before the clones disappeared, and out of the bushes stepped Team 7. Sasuke looked down at the defeated ninja. I can't believe the Dobe's plan worked. I'm awesome. Yeah, I thought for sure they wouldn't be dumb enough to fall for that. It was genius, Sakura-chan. Maybe they were the weakest of their village. They barely beat any of the clones. And they're only a fraction of Dobe. Hello, badass over here. I think this is one of those times that something is so stupid it just happened to work. Then again, he's dressed in orange with an annoying voice. Can't help them for thinking him an easy target. That's mean, Sakura-chan. She let out a giggle at his expense as they searched the 3 down ninja. After a few moments, Sakura found their prize. Look, guys, it's the Earth. Sure enough, in her hand was the Earth Scroll, the opposite of the Heaven Scroll Sasuke had. She moved to hand it to Sasuke, but he stopped her. No, one of you should carry it. If the enemy captures me, then they'll have both. This way, all our eggs won't be in one basket. Naruto looked as if the Uchiha had grown a second head, but Sakura just smiled. You're right, Sasuke-kun. Maybe you should carry it, Naruto. Now the blonde was giving her the same look. Me? I figured you think I'd lose it or something. She hit him over the head. Don't be dumb. I know you're not the smartest, but even you wouldn't do something that careless. Besides, with your shadow clones, you have an instant escape measure. They'd have to chase down the correct one in order to get the scroll. Naruto took the scroll and gingerly put it in his pouch. Thanks, guys. They shared a small moment of triumph before heading off in the direction of the tower. After an hour of travel, the sun had dipped below the skyline, and Team 7 still had not reached the tower. They weren't traveling at their fastest pace, not wanting to wear themselves out just in case of an enemy attack. Naruto had also sent 6 cloned 4 of them disguised as his teammates in 2 different directions, hopefully to keep enemies from noticing them. Things were going well, and then an intense gust of wind blew through the forest seemingly out of nowhere. Sasuke and Sakura were able to anchor themselves to their respective branches using their chakra. Naruto, however, was mid-jump, and so was swept away with a wordless scream. When the wind died down, Sakura turned to look for the blonde, but he was nowhere in sight. Naruto. Sasuke, we have dash. Eyes front Sakura. His tone left no room for argument, and when the pink-haired ninja turned back, she could understand why. Standing on a tree in front of them was a single grass ninja. She looked to be in her mid-20s with long black hair. She might not have thought much of her. A djinn in her age must not be anything special, but the amount of killing intent directed their way was enough to make her shake in fear. She didn't realize when the kunai got into her hand, but she would have to thank Kakashi later. The woman in front of them smiled. My, I thought this would be enough to freeze you 2 stiff. That's good. This will be more fun if you're capable of fighting back. She spoke to them with a hungry look in her eye, and it didn't take Sakura long to realize that it wasn't her that she was talking to. Apparently Sasuke caught that too. Who are you? What do you want? Her smile widened. Why to test the power of those wonderful eyes, Sasuke? In an instant, she was all over them. Sasuke struggled to block the incoming blows, let alone evade them. Each hit felt like solid steel smashing into his guard, threatening to break through. The Presu only let up when Sakura entered the fray in a dance of taijutsu to aid him. It was a futile effort. Their opponent was much too fast to be overwhelmed and too strong to bully back. He split his attention evenly before knocking Sakura away with a nasty kick to the midsection, and then he focused solely on the Uchiha, a swift combination knocking his stomach into his lungs and smashing him into the tree trunk with a loud thud. Sasuke struggled to breath as he climbed to his feet, fear and rage in his chest as the woman stood laughing. Is that all you have? Most disappointing, Sasuke. I haven't even started to get warmed up yet. His taunt bought Sakura the time she needed to recover and him the time to finish his jutsu before spitting out 6 well-sized fireballs at the woman. They would need to force her to the ground so Sakura could contribute more, lest they die in the trees. Naruto panted as the snake disappeared in a plume of smoke, the small part of his sword covered in purple blood of the creature. The blonde didn't know what to make of it. One moment he was traveling with his team on the way to safety, and the next he was ripped from the air by an intense gust of wind and sent flying deeper into the forest. As he fell from the sky, a great snake caught him in his maw and swallowed him whole in one gulp. He shivered as he remembered the inside of the serpent. Pink, hot, sticky, and very smelly. He nearly emptied his stomach when he saw the other two lumps of flesh dressed in clothing, the shining headband with the grass symbol etched into it. He was not the snake's first meal today. Luckily, Naruto had shadow clones and a massive supply of chakra. After spamming enough clones to cause the snake to vomit, he harried away at it with his sword until it vanished, much to his surprise. Someone had to summon that thing. But is it after us or not? Heap. The scream ripped apart his thoughts and echoed through the forest. Sakura. He took off like a man possessed, jumping from tree to tree until he finally arrived in a clearing to see a massive brown bear chasing a red-headed girl who screamed wildly. Naruto stopped. It wasn't Sakura, but someone else. Neither had spotted him yet, and it would have been easy to simply turn away. His team needed him after all. Maybe it was that Naruto just couldn't leave a person to die alone. Maybe it was the fact that her headband was the same as those two dead ninja in the snake's stomach. Or maybe it was that her hair reminded him of Ortega's. Either way, Naruto jumped into action, 6 clones appearing on either side as they charged the bear and pelted it with kunai, screaming and jeering to gain its attention. Once the bear was gone, chasing the 4 clones still alive, Naruto made his way to the girl who had collapsed in a heap. She looked up to him with red eyes, and for a moment he swore she had the Sharingan. You're safe now, though maybe not for long. It'll be pretty pissed when the clones are gone. She continued to pant before slowly getting to her feet and adjusting her glasses. Thank you for saving me. I don't know where Koji and Jimeneshi are, but you'd better get out of here before they arrive. This was supposed to be a trap. Naruto frowned. Appreciate that, but, well, I don't think your teammates are coming back. The girl took a step back. What do you mean? The fear in her voice was palpable, and his eyes widened at the implications of his last sentence. Oh, no. I didn't kill them, but they were killed by a giant snake summon. Or they might have been killed. All I saw were lumps of flesh and grass headbands. But it could have been another team, right? He rambled on, trying to clear his name, and the girl seemed to take it all in. A snake summon? Her eyes seemed to lose their focus for a moment before she began to shiver. In no way. What's wrong? He asked, voice laced with concern. There's a huge chakra signature not too far from here. 2 others are fighting it, but there's no way they can win against someone with that much chakra. Maybe that person was the same one that summoned the snake. It takes both great control and chakra to summon creatures. The bigger they are, the more difficult. Naruto wasn't really hearing her as she pointed towards the direction he was blown in from. That's where Sakura and Sasuke were. I've got to go. That has to be my team. He moved to bolt, intent on making the bastard who attacked them pay. Wait. Her pleading voice stopped Naruto in his tracks as he gave her a questioning look. Please, take me with you. I can't make it on my own, and I don't want to die in here. Naruto stared, his mind going over the possibilities. She could be leading me into a trap or waiting to betray me. But then again, maybe not. She would have died if I hadn't come along, right? He didn't have time to debate, though. His team needed him. Pressing his hands into a familiar seal, he made a few shadow clones that quickly scooped the girl into its arms while the original spoke. All right, you'll have to guide me to the fight, and then my shadow clones will continue on towards the tower to get you to safety. You'll have to protect yourself if they are dispelled. The girl flushed. All right. And then they were moving, the redhead navigating him through the trees towards the growing sound of combat. It didn't take long to find them. Sakura's Doton Jutsu were transforming the landscape, and there were plenty of scorch marks from either lightning or fire jutsu. Naruto spotted both his teammates panting for breath as a large snake, not unlike the one he fought earlier, lay bleeding on the branch. His clones continued to carry the girl well past the battlefield, and for good reason. Naruto wasn't sure this fight was over yet. Orochimaru was absolutely giddy with excitement. So far, Sasuke was pre-forming admirably. He was far ahead of any genin, even if that paled in comparison to the snake Sannin or Itachi, but that was okay. His ninjutsu, taijutsu, and jinjutsu all received passing marks in his eyes, not that they'd had any effect. He'll make an excellent body, one that I can conquer any foe with. Currently, he was letting the little genin catch their breath while he prepared his jutsu for the cursed seal inside his snake. Once it was ready, he emerged from the mouth, relishing in the sheer disgust and fear on the faces of his prey before letting the snake return. "You're everything I dreamed of, Sasuke. A true representation of the might Uchiha." Sasuke growled to cover his fear as the man made small talk. Everything they had done, all of it, was useless against the freak of a man. His jutsu were nimbly avoided and his jinjutsu broken within a second of being cast. It was like fighting Kakashi, only this time if he was a step too slow, he would be killed instead of pummeled. "He's toying with us, and there is nothing we can do about it." They had already offered up their scroll, but then the freak had burned his own scroll before attacking them, commenting that he cared nothing about this petty competition. A small part of him was proud that he and Sakura had lasted this long. The pink-haired girl was more than helpful against such a strong opponent, even if it was just giving him a small window to escape harm. The young girl was panting with her kunai still in hand, determined to see this through to the bitter end. Sasuke was about to engage again when he noticed the thickening mist creeping into the area. His Sharingan active, he noticed the chakra lacing the shrouds of water and knew that Naruto had arrived. Suddenly, there was action as four blondes erupted from the mist, swords uncovered as they swung to cleave the Sannin. Instead, it was the clones who were dispelled, Orochimaru chuckling as the smoke filled the air. "A nice attack, but not good enough. I'm surprised you're still Dash." A frown marred his pale face as his vision continued to cloud from the smoke. Using the same great wind jutsu from before, he tried to clear his view only for the smoke to remain. And then he felt the tickle of foreign chakra in his system. Snarling, he broke the Jinjutsu, only to find the forest empty of his prey. Sasuke. Team 7 did not speak to congratulate one another or form a plan. Instead, they pour all their effort and attention into reaching the tower and alerting the village. Naruto had already formed 4 sets of their team, hinged and sent 2 of them running parallel for the tower, while they and 2 other sets scattered in more varied routes to the same destination. After half an hour of running, they found an opening in the base of a tree and hid inside of it. All of them tense and afraid, the sound of the forest as the backdrop. Naruto had felt his clones die, 2 teams in quick succession. The bastard was close. He'd picked wrong twice, but their luck would not hold out. He sent a small prayer that he didn't kill the girl along with his clones. But considering that he had no memories of them dying, he was optimistic that they escaped his notice. It was not until another hour of silence passed that they dared move. Naruto leaving behind another 2 sets of clones, a noticeable strain on his already split chakra reserves, before they continued moving towards the tower. Finally, Naruto broke and dared to whisper a question. Who the hell was that guy? Team 7 applied every bit of caution they could as continued their retreat to the tower. Night had long since fallen, and with the lack of light, not only was navigation harder, but the more aggressive nocturnal animals had awakened to hunt. However, it wasn't animals that troubled them, but the fact that they were being hunted by one of the most powerful ninja Konoha had ever produced. Orochimaru pursued them. Sakura and Sasuke had informed the blonde on their struggles against their opponent in hushed whispers as they kept their senses alert for any sign of danger. After 15 minutes of travel, Naruto had informed his team that every single clone that he sent as a diversion had been killed. Their memories, flashes of death, as the Sannin cut through them with brutal efficiency, were all relayed back to Naruto. Sasuke's grimace deepened. "I'm sure he's after the Sharingan. What I don't know is why he didn't just kill us and take my eyes." Naruto shifted uneasy. "There's got to be another play. Maybe he wants you to betray the village." It was a long shot, but it made sense. Orochimaru had toyed with them, but if he wanted Sasuke to betray the village, attacking him and his teammates couldn't have been the best way to persuade him, even if was to demonstrate just how strong he was. After another stretch of silence, Sakura spoke. "What if he wants you to come to him willingly? It's no secret that the Sharingan in a coveted bloodline. Any village with it would become considerably more formidable. Maybe he wants you to seek him out and then use you to restore the clan outside of the Leaf Village." "HNN, like hell I'd do that. My clan won't be restored until they've been avenged. Anything less is unacceptable." Naruto was about to speak, but a shout from the dark caught their attention. Going rigid, they pressed themselves into cover at once. Naruto formed a clone and sent it to scout, while he saw Sakura and Sasuke palm a kunai. A tense silence fell over the group as Naruto closed his eyes to await information. Snapping his eyes open, he frowned. It's Team 10 and those sound bastards. Ino is down. Not killed, but I think it was her scream. Sakura gasped and Sasuke frowned. If we go to help, we risk getting Orochimaru on our trail. Naruto eyed him. They're our friends. Sasuke's face didn't change, just a quick glance to Sakura, who held a pleading look before he nodded. I figured you'd say that. We've got to make it quick. Sakura, you stay back. Keep lookout and provide cover. The Dobe and I will pull them from the fire. Naruto, get another clone OT hinge as Sakura. We'll attack as soon as we see an opening. We have to be swift, and we can't use too much chakra. If Orochimaru comes at us, we're going to need all we can to even attempt getting away. We have to alert a higher ninja about his presence. Naruto and Sakura nodded before moving to follow the order. One clone later, and the four of them moved into position to support their fellow Leaf Nin. They arrived to see Shikamaru and Choji holding a defensive position to a now standing Ino. The three sound ninja had them surrounded, the bandage guy taking point while the girl and spiky-haired genin were on their left and right respectively. The bandaged leader spoke. We won't ask you again. Where is Sasuke Uchiha? Shikamaru eyes flickering upward for a brief moment before settling back on the threat before him in a glare. We already told you. We don't know. He's not a member of our squad. The spiky boy spoke. Yeah, right. You Leaf Nin are nothing but a bunch of tree-hugging saps who can't do anything without backup, and we heard that bimbo talking about how her precious Sasuke-kun would be so taken with her for passing this pathetic exam. Now cough it up. Team 7 exchanged glances. Another team, looking specifically for Sasuke, resolved to talk about this later. Naruto maneuvered towards the other boy while his clone took the girl. Whatever, if you won't give him up willingly, then we'll just beat the information out of you. We don't need all this trash, just leave the girl alive. She should be enough. The boys of Team 7 tensed to move, but hesitated when Shikamaru smirked. It seemed that they weren't the only ones confused as the sound team remained rooted in place. What the hell? I can't move my body. Kagame successful. You three made it easy, shooting your mouths off because you thought we were weak. Ino and Choji both visibly relaxed, the former allowing a smirk to form as she sauntered forward, glad that little bit of acting paid off. No way we could lose to these three slobs. She glared at the spiky-haired Zaku. Didn't anyone ever tell you to never mess with a lady's hair? That stupid attack got dirt in it. Shikamaru shook his head, causing the three ninja to mirror him. Come on, let's get them bound and searched so we can leave this damn forest. Choji moved forward, removing ninja wire from his pouch, while Shikamaru forced them to their knees and put their hands behind their backs to have them tied. Before Choji could finish tying the first, Sasuke, Naruto, and the clone dropped to the ground and made their way towards their fellow Leaf Ninja. Naruto gave them a sly grin. Here I was thinking that you guys needed some help, but you guys totally played them. Nice going, Shikamaru. Shikamaru returned a grin of his own. Thanks, this whole exam is a drag. For a moment, I thought we'd have to leverage these guys as a distraction to get another team off our backs. You mind helping us get them tied down? I don't want to have to spend too much chakra holding this jutsu. Naruto and Sakura retrieved the wire from Choji and made sure that the other two ninja were tied down. Once secured, Shikamaru released the jutsu, his shadow returning to its original form, leaving the three sound Nin back in control of their bodies. Sasuke walked over to the boy with spiky hair, maneuvering him against a tree so that he could look him in the eye easier. You three are looking for me. What? Zaku struggled fruitlessly against his bonds. Screw you, Leaf. Why not untie me, and I'll show you exactly what we do to you. Sasuke frowned before removing a kunai and smashed the ring end into his head, knocking the loudmouth out. We don't have time for this. We have to alert someone, the proctors. There is an intruder in the village. Team 7 filled in their comrades, knocking out the other two sound ninja before searching them and retrieving their earth scroll. Shikamaru had fallen silent, a sign of his brain working over the issue with frightening speed. How much chakra are you guys working with? Sasuke flexed his fingers. I'm about half. give or take. Sakura is less, but her control never wavers, so she can make the most of her jutsu when it counts. Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling for his reserves. I've used a lot of clones, probably about half as well. The clones didn't spend much chakra, that bastard never gave them the chance. Shikamaru nodded. All right, we've gotten our objective and we need to get to the tower to alert someone, if they haven't already figured it out. If Sasuke is who he's after, then it's likely he'll be waiting for us to try and press our way in. Naruto, the blonde, perked up. I need you to make 15 clones. Can you do that comfortably? Receiving a nod, he turned to address the others. We'll each need to make 6 Bushin. Choji, Ino, split yours to disguise as Sakura and Sasuke. Naruto, you'll need to mix your clones in. Hinge a few to look like your teammates from their supply of chakra, and don't put one with each team. Scatter them as random as you can make it. Sasuke nodded as he spoke. You're hoping to confuse him. He'll be able to tell the Bushin apart, but he won't know which of the shadow clones are real or otherwise until he lands a hit. And if he pops one that's under a hinge, then he'll have to go after each one as real. He won't know which is which. Some of the teams will have to have 2 or 3 shadow clones, but it won't matter because he'll have to assume that Sasuke could just be using it as a ruse to break through. That'll buy us some time, but he's a Sannin. It won't last as long as I'd like. What's worse is that he still knows our destination, and we have to go while he's hunting down all these fake Team 7s. Ino frowned. Why can't we just wait until he's engaged a few teams? If he finds us, he won't play around again. He'll put us down and take Sasuke-kun's eyes. I know, but all we can do is make it a gamble for him. With more chances for him to choose wrong, we have a higher probability of reaching the tower. But the more teams he removes, the lower our chances, and it won't take him long. It's important to remember that we can't use jutsu if we spot him, even if it seems like his guard is down or he's distracted. Naruto nodded. If he sees someone using a jutsu, then he won't bother with the rest. He'll hone in on us. Shikamaru sighed. This is our best shot. Well, one that doesn't involve us abandoning Sasuke or Team 7. Sakura moaned. Even still, I don't like those odds. Naruto perked up and turned to Shikamaru. How are you guys at stealth? Ino scoffed. Probably better than yours. But what will that matter? I doubt it's anything that a Sannin hasn't seen before. Naruto smirked. True, but I think it won't matter. If the clones and I use the hidden mist jutsu, then have a bunch of the teams have tells while a few more use stealth, then it'll make it even harder to pinpoint which is the real one. Now it was Shikamaru who smirked. Always full of surprises, aren't you? All right. That'll add a layer of complexity and we'll work to our advantage with stealth. If it all works out, we'll get through this mess without incident. If he does guess right, then focus on getting the hell out. But whatever you do, don't scatter alone. Orochimaru hissed in frustration as he killed yet another shadow clone. He had been expecting them to try and sneak past him after he hunted the last batch of clones, but even he had not been prepared for their tenacity. That QB brat and his damn jutsu are grating on my nerves. Even with his ability to blow the mist away, the shadow clones just provided more, having more than enough moisture in the humid forest surroundings. There didn't appear to be a pattern to their formations. Some he found sneaking through the mist, others rushing with reckless abandon, and due to the sheer amount of chakra in the air blocking his senses, he was forced to waste time confirming that the Bushin weren't in fact his prey slinking around. Yet another team fell, and his irritation soared. He would not be denied. He would have the Uchiha, and no amount of brats was going to prevent his ambition. Teams 7 and 10 crept through the forest with extreme caution. Sasuke took point, his Sharingan, while not able to pierce through things like the Byakugan, would still give them more of a warning with its enhanced eyesight than anything else at their disposal. Behind him was Shikamaru, and Ino, hinged to look like his teammates. Sakura, Choji, and Naruto brought up the rear as another Team 7, with Naruto hinged to look like Sasuke with his Sharingan. They had a bit of space between them. Naruto, more comfortable maneuvering in his jutsu, took the point. So far, and no issues. The tower loomed in the distance, seeming to grow taller as they closed in, but they weren't out of the woods yet. Naruto grimaced as another clone met its end. Of the 15 he made, only 3 remained. Orochimaru was cutting through them with increasing aggression. He's nearly through. Can't be that many teams left. He didn't want to risk speaking, but he knew that he'd need to do something, otherwise their discovery would be inevitable. There has to be another way to buy time. The blonde racked his brain, and after another clone fell, he made his decision. Silently, he made 6 clones, much to the surprise of Choji and Sakura. Naruto, Sakura began, but a hand on her shoulder from Choji stopped her. They watched as the clones hinged, 2 to look like Sasuke and Sakura, and the other 3 to look like the defeated Nin that had attacked Team 10. With a single nod from the original, they broke off into the forest as swiftly and silently as they could. Speeding up, he closed the distance between the 2 teams. We need to run for it. He's killed most of the clones, and there can't be many of the Bushin left. Wait for the signal, and when you hear it, run like hell. They shared one apprehensive nod as they prepared themselves. Nothing happened as they trekked on, but suddenly there was a chain of explosions, and soon they were all booking it towards the tower as fast as they could. Orochimaru dispatched another set of clones, hissing as they all turned to smoke, when suddenly he heard his pawns shout out in the mist. "Come back here, Uchiha. We didn't take you for a coward." Face splitting open in glee, the snake summoner charged towards the commotion at breakneck speeds, bypassing his team towards the fleeing form of Team 7. With a flash of hand signs, he erected a wall of mud to halt their progress, forcing the Genin to turn and face him, kunai in hand. "Kuku, you lead me on quite the chase, Sasuke. But I'm afraid such tricks won't hold me for long." The cornered ninja didn't speak. Instead, Sasuke and Naruto charged, kunai in hand, as they took a last stand. Orochimaru welcomed the exchange, his eyes narrowing as Sasuke jumped into the air while the blonde threw his weapon. Even in the dim light, the Sannin could see the explosive tag trailing the blade. With a gesture, he sent a breeze that turned the weapon away where it exploded harmlessly in the forest. He smirked before his eyes widened, formed the sound of another blade. Using the substitution jutsu, he replaced himself with a fallen branch as 3 more explosions rocked the area, courtesy of his charges. Furious, he ripped through the children, and as expected they vanished in a puff of smoke. Enraged, he lashed out at all in the area under the waning moonlight. Turning back towards the tower to pursue his search, another figure had appeared, but it was no Genin. "Anko, come to greet your master?" The purple-haired ninja snarled as she prepared for a fight with her old mentor. Team 7 and Team 10 sighed in relief as they entered the tower. The riddle that greeted them was easily solved, partly because Naruto knew the expression as a favorite of the Hokage. When they opened the seals and Iruka appeared, he was greeted by hard faces that recounted their encounters in the forest. To say he was shocked was an understatement. "You mean Orochimaru of the Sannin? And you," pointing towards Team 7, "managed to escape his clutches and then met up with." Now he held his gaze to Team 10, "Your classmates, and made a plan to not only reach the tower, but to send him on a wild goose chase while you snuck into the tower?" "Yeah, Iruka-sensei. There was no way we were going to just let him have the team. Believe it." The scar-faced Chunin bit his lip. "Come with me." Traveling through the tower, Iruka led them to a hall lined with rooms. "These are where you'll be sleeping for the remainder of the exam. You guys made it in one day, so it'll be a little while before this phase finishes. Sakura and Ino, feel free to share a room. You boys will have to separate yourselves. They only sleep 3. Follow the signs for showers, and there is a small cafeteria around to keep you fed. You'll have to deal with your rations for now, since they're closed." Choji pouted at the news while everyone else seemed happy to not have to spend the night sleeping in a forest filled with predators. Iruka continued, "You all did well to both pass the exam and escape one of the deadliest missing ninja to ever come from our village. I have to go report this. No starting trouble with the other ninja who arrive. I'll come check on you again after I make my report." Iruka departed, and the Genin began to relax as they made their way towards the rooms. A door opened to reveal a sleepy-looking redhead with glasses, who peeked out of her room and glanced at the Genin. Her eyes widened when they landed on Naruto. "It's you." Naruto grinned as he watched the girl, clad in white and brown pajamas that actually turned out to be little bears when she got closer. "All right, you made it." He was so caught up with the ordeal with Orochimaru that he completely ignored the memories of the clones delivering her to the tower. He couldn't help but lament that he was unable to transfer memories to his clones like they could to him. If he could, then they could have warned someone a lot earlier. The girl smiled. Yes, thanks to you. I would have been dead had you not come along, and your clones actually helped get past some of the other genin, so we didn't even have to fight. Naruto returned her grin. Hee all in a day's work. Believe it. Ino raised a brow. Wait, Naruto saved someone by himself in that horrible forest? Forehead, what the hell is going on? A few months ago, he was just an annoying dead last. Sakura frowned. Ino pig, only we can call Naruto Baka dead last, she screeched. Besides, we've all gotten a lot stronger since the academy. Ino snorted. Yeah, right. I'm sure it was just a fluke. I'll bet it was probably all Sasuke-kun while he just hogged the glory. Naruto was livid. Hey, Naruto Uzumaki is pure awesomeness. Believe it. I helped her while I was trying to get back to Sasuke team and Sakura-chan. So take that, you blonde bimbo. Blonde bimbo? You idiot. You're blonde and forgetful. You're the blonde bimbo. Choji played peacekeeper and lifted Ino by the waist and restrained her from throttling Naruto, who was hiding behind Sakura at his fellow blonde's aggression. Come on, Ino. You don't want to get in trouble. Besides, Naruto and his jutsu are one of the reasons we were able to make it here at all, right, Shikamaru? The black-haired teen muttered something about troublesome. He's right, Ino. Naruto isn't a dim as he appears. Then he smirked. Although he is a bit of a bimbo. Hey. Sasuke cracked a grin. Bimbo. I like the sound of that for you, dope. Naruto narrowed his eyes before a grin appeared on his face. Says you team. Weren't you just telling me how you prefer blondes? Sasuke's eyes widened as a high-pitched screech cut through the air. Instantly, Ino was wrapped around Sasuke, his arm held deep in her clutches while Choji marveled at how Ino managed to slip out of his grasp without him even noticing. I knew you had an eye for only the most beautiful girls such as myself, Sasuke-kun. Sakura growled before hitting Naruto on the head before stalking over towards Sasuke. Grasping his free arm, she proceeded to try and wrest him away from her former best friend. Get off him, Ino pig. Everyone knows Sasuke prefers slimer girls. Naruto, Choji, and Shikamaru couldn't help but laugh at the brooding teen's predicament. It was almost enough to put their near-death experience out of their minds completely. A tap on the shoulder brought Naruto's attention back to the redhead, who had gone quiet some time ago. See, can I talk to you alone? Naruto nodded his head, catching his teammates' eyes who nodded before going back to their antics, before he and Karen disappeared into one of the rooms. It was pretty Spartan, just a few beds and a small basket for trash alongside a mirror. The girl stood with her back to him as he closed the door, engulfing the room in silence. Finally turning towards him, the redhead held a neutral expression. I can't thank you enough for saving me, but there's something I'd like to know. It was no problem, but what's up? What do you need to ask me? Taking a breath, she began. You said your name was Naruto Uzumaki, is that right? At his nod, she continued. Why, you mean you're of the Uzumaki clan? From the land of whirlpools? Yeah, I've never been. It was destroyed way before I was born. Uzumaki was my mother's name. She stared at him in silence for a spell. Is your mother still around? Naruto shook his head. I'm an orphan. Old man Hokage told me when I was a kid that my parents had perished during the Kyuubi attack the night I was born. I've never known them. I see. Why? Why are you asking about the Uzumaki clan? I never did give you my name, but what I'm about to tell you can't leave this room. I am not supposed to tell, but you saved my life and… She trailed off, clearly uncomfortable, but after a moment she continued. My name is Karen, Karen Uzumaki. Uzumaki, he uttered shocked. You mean, we're family? Karen nodded guarded. Yeah, that's right. I've never heard of anyone else using that surname besides myself and my mother. She was old enough to remember when our homeland was destroyed all those years ago. She told me of our clan and the traits help identify our kin who fled to the mainland. Naruto scratched his head. Things to look out for? Yeah, you. Well, you don't really have any of them, except for maybe that overwhelming amount chakra. It's why I wanted to know if your family was still around, to help confirm it. I don't mean to be rude, but even with your last name, you don't really know if it's true. The Leaf Village could have just used Uzumaki to pay tribute to their fallen comrades. Hey, I'm definitely an Uzumaki, believe it. The old man wouldn't lie about that. And I even met a cousin recently that was able to confirm it. That caught Karen's attention. A cousin? Yeah, he's here from the village hidden in the mist. He's got hair like yours and a scroll that he used to prove that I've got Uzumaki blood in my veins. And he's in the village? He's here. Again, Naruto nodded. Yeah, but I don't think he'll be able to teach you much. Kusagakure is your village, so he probably dash. Kusagakure is not my village. Taken back, Naruto stared at Karen, whose face had shifted to one of bitter resentment. My mother and I sought refuge there after wandering for years. It was fine at first, but when they realized that we were Uzumaki, things changed. We have an ability. Our chakra heals others naturally. When they found out, they forced my mother to work as a medic and used her ability to heal their wounded. It went that way for years, until one day she died from chakra exhaustion. Karen sat on a bed, her voice laced with venom. They killed her, and instead of showing remorse, they forced me to take her place, even going as far to place me on this team to make a good showing at the exams. A brilliant plan that got both of my teammates killed. Naruto shifted where he stood. Her story brought up memories of Zabuza and Haku. Another ninja used like a tool and discarded when they weren't of any use. Walking over, Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling her flinch at the contact. I'm sorry, Karen. No one should be treated like that, no matter what their ability or where they are from. I might not look like it, but I am an Uzumaki, and that makes you family. I've never had family before. I grew up alone, and even though I had the old man and Irika-sensei, it never felt the same as everyone else. But now I've found that I have two relatives, both from different villages, and I couldn't be happier. Family takes care of one another, and I'm positive that Ortega can help you. And if he can't, then I'll just have to find a way to help you myself. Believe it. Karen gave him a watery smile as she hugged him. Thank you, Naruto. It means a lot. You're right. You might not have the hair, but I'll be glad to call you family, cousin. Naruto grinned. You're welcome, cousin. I'm gonna go find Irika-sensei. He'll be able to get a message to Kakashi-sensei, our team Jounin, or Old Man Hokage. I won't tell him everything, but Kakashi-sensei should be able to tell Ortega that I found family in the forest. He'll know what it means and come for sure. Giving one last hug, Naruto returned to the hall to find that Irika had returned. There you are, Naruto. I was just informing your team about the next part of the exam. All right, what butts do we have to kick next to get our promotion? Irika laughed. Well, none for now. There's still 4 more days until the second phase ends. You're allowed to wander the tower and some of the grounds outside, but you won't be able to return to the forest or leave into the village. In 4 days, there will be more instruction, but for now, I recommend relaxing. There are medics on site that can give you some first aid, but for the sake of the test, they won't be allowed to treat you for everything. And if they need to admit you, it can result in your removal from the Chunin exams. The 6 Genin nodded. All right then. I suggest you all get some sleep. It's pretty late, and I'll need to return for any other teams that come through. As the Genin broke off, Naruto went to stop his former teacher. Irika-sensei, is Kakashi or the old man around? Irika shook his head. No, I'll bet they're both enjoying a peaceful night. Why, what do you need? Could you deliver a message to either of them? It's pretty important. Naruto, they're not going to be able to give you any advice while the exam is in place, and contact with them is strictly prohibited for all participants. I understand, Irika-sensei, but this isn't related to the exam, and the one who needs to talk with them aren't in the exam any longer. Please, Irika-sensei, it's really important. Naruto laid it on thick with his patented puppy eyes, drawing a fond laugh from the Chunin. All right, what's the message? Urok-sensei, I need you to tell them that I found another family member, and they need to speak with Ortega. Irika's brow raised. Another family member? Naruto, what does that mean? What's going on? Sorry, sensei. I made a promise, and Naruto Uzumaki never breaks his promises. Believe it. If you tell them, they can explain, but for now I just need to get them this message. I'll get it done. Likely Kakashi as Hokage-sama is very busy. The next few days were full of boredom for Naruto. However, he was ecstatic when Team 8 arrived at noon of the next day, and the next to arrive was Team Guy, who held the quirky Rock Lee, who instantly challenged Sasuke to a fight as to defeat the strongest rookie, much to his chagrin. The Leaf Shinobi weren't the only ones to arrive. A team from Suna made it. The redhead who glared murderously at him alongside a boy wearing makeup, he insisted it was battle paint, and a girl with a larger-than-average fan strapped to her back. Then came the team from Kirigakure, Eretiga's team. Rosen had smirked and commented that he was glad that the pathetic thief had managed to pass so that he could have a shot at defeating him and revealing him for what he was. Never one to back down from a challenge, Naruto told him any time and any place. Naruto didn't have an opportunity to speak with Karen again. One day she was there, and the next she was being escorted out by one of the proctors. Irika informed him that he had delivered the message to Kakashi. However, what became of it, he did not know. The blonde hoped his cousins had found one another, and that Ortega had a solution to Karen's situation. Finally, the last day came, and 7 teams managed to survive and pass the exam. The Rookie 9, Team Guy, Team Kabuto, Team Ortega, and the Suna team. All were assembled in a vast room before the Hokage. There, Jounin-sensei observed from the balcony, as the Chunin exam proctors waited alongside their Kage. Congratulations to all of you. You have passed the survival test and recovered the scrolls from opposing teams. However, I'm afraid that not all of you will continue on to the final phase. He was met with murmurs of confusion and anger. The final stage is public, drawing a crowd from far and wide. A great deal of them people who will have need of ninja in the future. It is a chance for each village to showcase their worth and can boost the reputation of said villages greatly. There are 21 of you now. By the end, there will only be 10. We will decide this with a preliminary round. Asterisk cough cough asterisk Hokage-sama. As their proctor, may I take over explaining the preliminaries? You may Hate. Hate was a sickly-looking man with a black bandana covering his head behind the leaf headband. As Hokage-sama was saying, there will be a preliminary round leading to the last phase. From this point on, you will be selected randomly to engage in one-on-one combat. We will continue on until only 10 contestants remain. It will start today. However, before we begin, are there any that wish to retire? Your team will not be penalized. This is an individual choice. A single hand, Kabuto's, rose among the crowd. My team and I just arrived, and I've used a lot of chakra just staying alive. He gave a sheepish smile to the proctor who came to collect him. He was taken through the doors, and then he was gone. Hate continued. If there's no one else, good. Then we'll announce our first match. Suddenly, there was a beeping noise, drawing the attention of the room to a massive screen along the wall. Random names flashed along the screen, until settling on 2 names, Sasuke Uchiha versus Yuryu Akato. Naruto turned to see his teammate with his usual smirk. Good. I was sick of waiting. Sasuke, Yuryu, remain here. Everyone else, please move to the balcony. Following the instructions, Naruto and Sakura took the stairs along with all the other genin who broke off towards their respective sensei. Kakashi greeted them with a smile. Sakura, Naruto, glad to see that you aren't any worse for wear. Imagine my surprise when I found out that you finished the second phase on just the first day, only to then be told that you escaped from one of the most powerful ninjas of his generation. Are you both well? Naruto grinned. Of course, sensei. Team 7 is too awesome to be held down by some snake bastard. Ow, he rubbed the back of his head where his pink-haired teammate had struck him. Naruto Baka, we barely made it out of there. Turning towards her teacher, she gave a bow. It was really rough. We had to hide and cover our tracks, running for our lives while avoiding everyone who wanted our scroll. Kakashi shifted. I can imagine. The Chunin exams are meant to test you in simulations that mirror missions in the real world. It is not uncommon for higher ninja to take mission deep in enemy territory and learning to maneuver through, as well as using your best judgment on when to engage, is crucial to survival. I'd have to say, being able to escape a Sannin is an experience that only a few can claim. You should be proud of your ingenuity. He rested a hand on each of his charge's head. Just don't get a big head about it, okay? Yes, sensei. The chorst. Good. Looks like this fight is nearly over. Turning towards the arena below, Team 7 watched as Sasuke dismantled his opponent with his taijutsu. Yoroi was breathing heavy, his posture showing signs of pain as his left hand had a glow of chakra around it. The two engaged again. The clothed genin seemed hell-bent on latching onto Sasuke with his left, but it made him predictable and easy to exploit. Sasuke pivoted, lashing out with a kick that connected with his opponent's jaw that sent him skidding across the ground. He shifted on the ground in pain, before falling still. Cough cough. Winner, Sasuke Uchiha. There was some scattered applause, mostly from Sakura and Ino, who seemed to be in competition about who could praise him more. Sasuke looked bored. Naruto could tell that he was more than pleased at having beaten his opponent so soundly. The medic team came to collect Yoroi while Sasuke sauntered up towards his team. And not bad team, but I'd have beat him in one move, believe it. Sasuke smirked. Yeah right, dope. He'd have probably grabbed you while you struggled to remember how to walk. Their tender moment was broken when Ino latched onto Sasuke from behind. Sasuke-kun, you were amazing. HNN, get off. As Sakura joined the fray, Naruto turned back to Kakashi. Sensei, were you able to get my message from Irika? The silver-haired Jonin nodded. Yes, I did. I passed it along to the Hokage. Usually, he would have just let it go. But since neither Kusa nor Kiri are allies or openly hostile, he did get the message to Ortega. I'm not sure what he did about it, but from the smile on his face as he left the compound, I'd say he was glad to be alerted to another member of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto smiled. That's great. I'll bet Karen was really happy too. I hope she can join him without causing trouble. Yes, let's hope it all goes well. But you should focus on the exams for now. The next opponent has been selected. Who knows, you might have to fight one of them in the future. Sure enough, the next names had been selected, Shino Aburame versus Kasumi Hiroshi, and both competitors had already made it down to the arena. Kasumi was a confident-looking girl with purple eyes and short brown hair that stopped just under her ears. She wore a fitted brown shirt that was cropped right at her navel, white shorts with various pouches no doubt containing ninja tools, and a pair of black sandals. The headband for Kirigakure tied loosely around her neck, as she smirked at the stoic Shino. Cough begin. Shino jumped back to give himself space, while Kasumi reached into her pocket and withdrew a small brown ball. Still smirking, she threw it at Shino, who moved to avoid the projectile but was not expecting it to explode in a cloud of smoke mid-flight. He covered his mouth, hesitant to breath in case of poison, but the sheer amount of smoke made that unlikely. Naruto scowled. Man, it's all smoky, we can't see a thing. While he didn't know it, several of the other genin agreed, their gaze unable to pierce the veil as sounds of combat filled the air. Naruto tried to tell what was happening, but it was nearly impossible to tell who was who as shadows played out. A gasp came from his right, where he saw Hinata, pale eyes watching in horror as thick veins bulged around her eyes. He turned back to the smoke, but wasn't able to see a thing. Curiously, he walked over. Hey Hinata, are you able to see what's going on? She glanced at the blonde, her face starting to turn red. In Naruto-kun. Why yes, I can see. The Byakugan is able to see through most things. Man, that's awesome. Wish I could see what's happening. Kiba was about to say something, but a hand on his shoulder from Kurina stopped him short. She shook her head and smiled as she turned back to Hinata. Hinata smiled, pressing her two index fingers together. Would you like me to explain what's happening? Naruto brightened. For real? Alright, I'll totally pay you back somehow. Believe it. Hinata's face grew redder. They're fighting in the smoke. But I think Shino is struggling. He's keeping up, but that girl seems to have more practice with fighting blind. She also keeps marking something on the ground. I can't tell what it is, but every time she engages Shino, she backs off and does it in a different place. Naruto frowned. He didn't see how marking something on the ground could do anything. Maybe that's how she's keeping track of the room? The smoke lessened as the two ninja continued to clash. Shino seemed to faring better with the increased visibility. Slipping a punch, he landed a kick to the girl's abdomen, sending her skidding back as she clutched her stomach. Ow. Don't you, Leaf, ever learn not to strike a lady? Shino shifted. Yes, but in a fight there are no ladies or men, just opponents that need to be dispatched. The girl stood and gave him a smile. Mysterious, tall, and not afraid to get rough. She winked seductively. My kind of man. Hope you won't take losing too hard, cutie. Maybe I'll make it up to you by paying for our first date. Shino shifted his arms, placing them forward. I'm afraid it will be me who has to make it up to you. Why? Because this match is mine to win. From his sleeves came a swarm of flying insects that shot out towards his opponent, who grimaced and began to move to avoid them. Shino wasn't idle. He moved to cut her off, allowing the bugs to herd her towards a place of his choosing as the once again engaged her in taijutsu. Kasumi was fast, avoiding the strikes while also moving to avoid the cloud of insects that pursued her. After a few exchanges, she lashed out a knee that doubled Shino over, allowed her to use him as leverage to vault over him and away from his bugs. She landed with a smirk. Sorry, sweet cakes, but this is mine. Cut. With the release of her chakra, there was a faint glow from the floor as black writing began to spread around the arena, all of which seemed to pull towards a now motionless Shino. Retrieving a kunai from her pouch, she ran and slid under the incoming insects, closing in on Shino, who stood rooted in place. She placed the blade to his neck and turned towards the proctor. I don't want to have to slice him, but if he can't surrender, the seals prevent him from moving at all. You gonna call it? She took a slice on his arm, drawing blood while Shino failed to react. Or am I really going to have to end him? Hate glanced at Shino, who had yet to move before raising his hand. Winner Kasumi Hiroshi. Kasumi did a backflip to avoid the bugs still pursuing her before she rose and made another hand sign. The writing receded, and Shino stumbled with the newfound freedom. He raised a hand into the air and allowed his bugs to return. I have lost. You fought well. Kasumi blew him a kiss. Of course, I'm no slouch, even for a handsome hunk. Shino said nothing as he moved to return to his team, while Kasumi did the same on the opposite stairwell. Naruto was confused. What kind of jutsu was that? All she did was chakra release, and suddenly he couldn't move an inch. Kuriina spoke up. That was Fuin jutsu. It isn't normally used in direct combat, since it required the seals to be drawn up and placed depending on the range of the effect, but she was able to do it while blind and fighting with Shino. She must be very skilled to use them in such a way. Shino had arrived and gave a bow. Forgive me, sensei. Why? Because I was unable to proceed to the final round of the exams. Kiba threw an arm around his shoulder. Don't sweat it, buddy. There are worse ways to lose than to a babe like that. Ahem. I mean than a capable kunoichi who trained incredibly hard and is not sexually attractive in any way. Yeah, that's what I meant. Naruto laughed at the glare Kiba got from his sensei, while Hinata reached into her bag and removed a small container. Shino-kun here. This salve should help with your cut. Shino accepted it with a bow. Thank you, Hinata. You are most generous. Naruto grinned. Hinata-chan is so thoughtful. I wish the other girls would take notes instead of being all crazy over Sasuke team. Hinata ducked her head as it seemed to have brightened to the shade of a ripe tomato, much to the delight of her sensei, who couldn't suppress a small laugh. You're quite the character, Naruto. It's too bad she won't be able to cheer for you during your match. Naruto was brought up short as he turned his attention to the board, which read Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. The names were clear on the board. Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. Naruto and Kiba shared a smirk, one full of challenge and the other full of confidence. Guess I'm lucky after all. I get to take down the class clown. Naruto's grin tightened. Too bad your luck just changed, dog breath. I'll show you just how much has changed since goofing off in the academy. Believe it. The two locked eyes for a moment longer before proceeding down to the arena floor. Once they reached the bottom steps, Kiba was about to continue, but was stopped when Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. Turning, the Inuzuka saw the blonde extend his fist with a genuine smile. Let's show them the power of Irika's troublesome bunch. Kiba didn't even try to fight down his own smile. Glad you won't have any hard feelings when you lose. He extended his own fist to bump into Naruto's. Don't worry, I'll try to make it quick. Shouldn't be too painful. Fleabag. Bimbo. The two took their positions, Naruto holding the hilt of the severed Kubikurabocho while Kiba took the Inuzuka stance. Third fight, Naruto Uzumaki versus Kiba Inuzuka. Begin. True to his word, Kiba didn't waste a second to go on the offensive. With a chakra-fueled dash, he launched himself at Naruto and buried an elbow into the blonde ninja's gut, knocking him back several feet. Naruto was glad that he'd learned proper chakra control from the tree walking exercise, as it was literally the only thing that allowed him to keep his feet under him as he continued to skid across the floor. Damn, that one hurt. Let's see how he likes this. Signature Jutsu on full display. Naruto created 5 clones before charging the Inuzuka, intent on returning the favor. Kiba proved to be a capable fighter, avoiding being surrounded while using his family style to lash out unpredictably with his limbs. The clones weren't slouches either. They evaded and parried as much as they could, using their swords to make space and avoid enough contact to be dispelled. They continued to press for an opening, slicing and cutting at the dog-like ninja, until finally Kiba was forced off balance to avoid a slash, receiving a kick to his face courtesy of standing monkey style. Resisting the urge to gloat, the clones moved to capitalize, grabbing hold of Kiba from behind as another pointed the edge of his sword towards the Inuzuka's face. Hey, give up dog breath. Otherwise, I'll have to neuter you. Up on the balcony, the remaining rookie 9, save for Sakura and Sasuke, were shocked at how the fight was going. None of the rookies thought Naruto was a bad guy per se, just loud and annoying a bunch of the time. But his lack of skill from the academy days was etched into their minds. The dead last who couldn't even hit the target 4 of 10 times. The loud mouth who lost almost every spar and kept crying out that he'd be Hokage. That was the Naruto they remembered, not this active threat that was good enough to force Kiba into a position like this. Ino was the first to recover. I know he learned some jutsu and a little common sense, but I didn't think he'd actually be able to take anyone in a one-on-one fight. Shikamaru yawned. What about that looks like one-on-one? Shut up, Shika. You know what I mean. Choji watched the proceedings with a thoughtful expression. He has been training just like us for months now, even working with Asuma-sensei to learn new things. Guess it makes some sense that he'd get stronger. Asuma chuckled. The kid is hyperactive and learns best with hands-on guidance. He probably felt bored out of his mind sitting at a desk all day. The kid's got grit and an eye for combat. Those 2 things aren't really tested in the academy, but they can take you far. Not much further away, Hinata stood watching, trying to hide a smile as the match unfolded. Naruto had always been a source of inspiration for her, ever since that fateful day that she followed him after school one day. He'd gotten last place again in the marksmanship test, missing all but one shuriken that barely caught the edge of the target. He was teased about it horribly. Even some of the teachers laughed at his performance openly. She knew what it was like to be considered a failure, and had it been her, she was sure that she would have gone home to sulk or quit. But Naruto didn't either. He got angry, but he went and gathered his weapons and continued to practice until sundown. The next day he did the same, then again and again. He practiced until his fingers bled, then he wrapped them and continued on. Hinata saw firsthand the determination that Naruto possessed when he put his mind towards something, forging his own ninja way in the coals of his hard work. For the shy and soft-spoken heiress to the Hyuga clan, it was a dream she could get behind. Sasuke scoffed. What a boring fight. The dobe and the mutt can have whatever their dogfight. I just want to see more of the competition. Kakashi gave his signature eye smile. Confident are we? Sasuke smirked. Against those 2? Absolutely. Naruto isn't going to lose to Kiba, but neither of them are stronger than me. The dead last isn't a threat. I see. You know, Naruto told me about your encounter with Rock Lee. It sounded like he got the better of you in your little spar. The Uchiha's face turned sour. He was faster than I thought. That's all. I won't make that same mistake again. On my little Sasuke, you just did. Sakura and Sasuke turned towards their sensei with questioning looks. As you know, the team pairings have a structure of sorts. Usually, the dead last is paired with the rookie of the year in the hopes that the gap between them will close with training. Naruto was the dead last, and you Sasuke were rookie of the year, as you well know. Sasuke frowned. What does that have to do with me making a mistake? I just so happen to know that Team Guy has the same structure as us. Are you aware who last year's rookie of the year is? HNN, Niji Hyuga. Sakura's eyes widened. Oh yeah, I remember hearing about him in school. But, Kakashi-sensei, does that mean? Yup, Rock Lee was last year's dead last. Kakashi turned towards Sasuke with a neutral expression. Remember, titles like dead last and genius are often given with good reason, but they don't mean much except on paper. In a fight, even the dead last can beat a genius. Sasuke frowned as he pondered his teacher's words, turning his attention back to the match. Sakura turned to watch the fight with a small smile. Well, looks like we don't have anything to worry about for Naruto. Kakashi hummed. Well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. The Inuzuka clan is quite formidable. Something tells me this isn't over just yet. Down below, Kiba growled as he struggled to free himself before letting out a sharp bark. From beneath his hood shot out the pale blur of Akamaru, who took advantage of his surprise attack and bit the Naruto, who was holding the sword hard on the arm. The clone had just enough time to yelp before he vanished in a puff of smoke. Smirking, Kiba felt his capture slack just a bit, allowing him to do a reverse headbutt and knock him away before it vanished like the other. An Inuzuka never fights alone. We have our partner to watch our back. Looks like you forgot about Akamaru. That mistake is going to cost you the match. Utilizing their speed, Akamaru and Kiba retreated towards the wall to prepare their counterattack. Kiba took a pill from his pouch and fed it to Akamaru, who immediately began to shake as his fur darkened and his appearance began to look more ravenous. Let's see how you like dealing with clones, beast mimicry. Suddenly Akamaru had changed into a copy of Kiba, both of whom were hunched down on all fours and charging back into the fray. Naruto and his three remaining clones engaged, trying to separate and capture the duo, but they quickly realized that both of their adversaries were going full throttle. Even with their sword to extended their range, the sheer speed the Inuzuka was displaying was enough to change the pace of the fight. In rapid succession, the clones were dispelled, leaving the real Naruto alone against the combined assault. Kiba and his clone, Naruto, actually lost track of which was which during the fighting, paused to focus on the lone blonde. Alright, now time to finish this. One Kiba jumped onto the other's back, both grinning at Naruto with larger-than-average canines. Ultimate Beast Jutsu. Fong over Fong. The two ninja blurred forward as one before separating into spinning drills of pain, one from above and the other from below. Naruto just enough time to block before he was set upon by the attack. It was a horribly effective technique that seemed to hit everything at once without discretion. Naruto heard his clothes tear, soon followed by his skin. He was knocked around by the two ninja in a typhoon of limbs. He was fortunate enough to have the rest of his sword strapped to his back, so it prevented him from being completely defenseless. Kiba finished with one last volley before allowing the blonde to crash to the arena floor. The whole room looked over at the motionless blonde with various expressions on their face as they all wondered if he would get up. Kiba smirked. Sorry, buddy, but you're not on the same level as Akamaru and me. Proctor, go ahead and call it. This match is over. Sakura watched with a concerned expression as Naruto shifted on the ground. Turning to Kakashi, she voiced her concerns. Sensei, is Naruto still using those weights? Her teacher shook his head. No, he's had them off since the start of the exam. Kiba certainly has the speed advantage, but I wouldn't count Naruto out just yet. Sasuke smirked. The dobe has been hit harder than that in our trainings. It'll take more than that to keep him down. Kakashi raised a brow. Lots of confidence in your teammate. You sure he'll pull through? Yes. Really, and why is that? Sasuke's smirk was on full display. Because I have to get serious to fight the dobe. No way I hit lighter than Kiba. Quitting already, dog breath. Naruto was struggling to his feet as he reached over and retrieved his sword hilt from the ground. Getting his feet under him, he reattached his sword to its full length before smirking at his friend. I'm not done just yet, not by a long shot. Sakura caught the smug look on Sasuke's face and giggled before turning back to the fight. Kiba scratched his head. Man, you're too stubborn for your own good. If you aren't going to stay down, then I guess we'll need to do it for you. Naruto formed a single seal and began channeling chakra into the air around him. If you think you can, then try it. The same tricks won't work on me twice, believe it. In seconds, there was a light haze developing into a full-blown mist that began covering the room. limiting the field of and growing denser around Naruto. The Kibas rushed in. No way, I'm letting you out of my sight. Spinning into his technique, the two rushed towards Naruto and dove on him, seeking to end the fight. Unfortunately for Kiba, Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke on contact. Kiba snarled and looked around. The mist had gotten even denser as the technique continued. His visibility was limited to a few feet in front of him, and Naruto was nowhere in sight. You think you'll be able to hide from me in this? How pathetic. The mist remained in motion, silence his only answer. Looks like he's smart enough not to answer. Still doesn't change anything. Kiba and Akamaru began to sniff the air. The mist had dampened the air, and so it was a bit harder to catch the scent. But the Inuzuka nose was not so easily fooled. Gotcha. Sorry, Naruto. Looks like you lose. The two began to chase down the blonde, who apparently knew the jig was up. Jumping into the air, he sought to escape his pursuers. Kiba smirked as he and Akamaru followed, breaking through the mist to catch sight of himself. 3 Kibas now hung in the air, each one a look of surprise on their face. The real Kiba growled and continued the attack. Nice try, but you won't fool my nose. A high-pitched yelp cried out from the mist from where he was convinced Naruto had landed in the mist. Landing to follow up, he was surprised to see the whining form of Akamaru on the ground instead. What? It can't be, but if this is Akamaru, then… With a roar, he turned and delivered a haymaker to the other Kiba. Caught off guard, he was knocked to the ground, forcing the illusion to fall as the chakra was disturbed. But instead of Naruto, it was another Akamaru who whined at him instead. What? Akamaru. Suddenly Kiba felt metal on his neck, preventing him from moving in any direction lest he be cut. Sorry, dog breath, but like I said, a lot has changed since the academy. The mist began to clear, and soon the entire room was able to see what had occurred. Naruto stood a few feet away from Kiba, gripping the hilt of the full Kubikurabocho as he rested Kiba's head through the circle in the blade, effectively taking him hostage. Kiba snarled, "You tricked me into knocking out Akamaru." Naruto grinned. "You're talking with the prank master of Konoha." Now, he shifted his sword to press it a bit more to his comrade's throat. "I think you need to surrender so we can call this." Kiba looked back at Akamaru, who still hadn't gotten to his feet. "Damn it. All right, I surrender." Hate raised his hand. Kiba Inuzuka admits defeat. Winner Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto grinned and lifted his sword and allowed Kiba to check on his partner. All right. One step towards Hokage, believe it. Securing his sword, he looked to the Hokage, who was smiling at his antics. Better keep that hat warm, old man. I'll be coming for it soon. The Hokage laughed. We'll see, Naruto-chan, but for now you should clear the arena for our next contest. Naruto turned and headed for the stairs as he noticed killing intent coming towards him. Sure enough, he caught the eye of the red-headed sand ninja, who seemed impassive, but the killing intent told him another story. It was so potent that he nearly missed a smaller amount coming from Rosen, the Kiri ninja that he'd encountered in the village. Choosing to file that away for later, Naruto smiled as he was greeted by teammate. Akamaru was now conscious atop Kiba's head, who still looked disappointed by his loss. Shino and Hinata greeted him. Naruto, you did well in your bout. I am not angry at you for defeating Kiba. Why? Because you both used your skills and abilities to best one another in a close fight. Thanks, Shino. And Naruto-kun. Well done. The girl didn't look at Naruto, but her blush was full force as she poked her index fingers together. Naruto grinned and gave her a hug. Aw, thanks, Hinata. Kurenai stepped in to spare her student a full-on fainting spell. You did well, Naruto. That was an unexpected turn of events. She turned her attention to Kiba. You and Akamaru did well in your fight, but you got overconfident when things were going your way. Remember, Kiba, deception isn't just in the form of Jinjutsu. Had you kept your head and trusted your senses, you could have avoided that defeat. Kiba nodded his head. It won't happen again, sensei. I could have just had Akamaru stop the jutsu to confirm it was really him. Instead, I let myself get riled up and ended up hurting him. He shifted his eyes to Naruto. You got me this time, Naruto, but I'll make sure that the next time we come out top dog. Naruto grinned. Anytime you want to go, I'll be ready. With that, he made his way towards his team, which greeted him with a smile. save for Sasuke, who kept his usual aloof expression. Kakashi greeted him first. Good job, Naruto. I see your time with Asuma and Shikamaru has been good for you. Yeah, I was able to think on the fight before making a move. Kiba's always been hot-headed. I figured he wouldn't think things through if I gave him a few surprises. Kakashi nodded. Good thinking, especially against an opponent who displayed superior physical abilities to your own. Maybe it would be best to continue using the weights to help with your speed. Sasuke smirked. You were too slow, dope. If I had fought him, he wouldn't have gotten close. Whatever, team, not all of us have your cheating eyes. Hey coughed, gaining everyone's attention. The next match is decided. Hinata Hyuga versus Neji Hyuga. Please make your way to the arena. Naruto saw a boy with long black hair and pale white eyes like Hinata's turn from Guy's team and make his way to the arena floor, a smirk on his face. Hinata, with pure apprehension visible, made her way down. When she had to stop herself from shaking as she stood across from Neji, who noticed his opponent's fear. You should give up now, Lady Hinata. It is your fate to lose to me. The Hyuga princess seemed to consider doing just that when a voice called out to her. You got this, Hinata. Use those awesome eyes to take him apart. Her face lit up as she locked eyes with a cheering Naruto. Her resolve hardened as she took her stance and looked back at Neji. I won't give up. Not before I try. Neji glanced at the blonde and then frowned in disgust as he stared at his cousin. Pathetic, encouraged by the dead last. Struggle all you want. A loser will always be a loser. He set himself in a similar stance as Hate began the match. Hinata versus Neji begin. The two stared at one another for a brief moment, before activating their bloodlines and rushing towards one another. What ensued was one of the strangest taijutsu battles that Naruto had ever witnessed. The two were going full throttle, wisps of chakra polluting the air as they tapped at one another with a few fingers, each one parrying the other before responding in kind. Naruto scrunched up his nose and turned towards his teacher. Kakashi-sensei, what kind of style are they using? Sakura groaned. Naruto, we talked about this in the academy all the time. That's the gentle fist style that the Hyuga clan is known for. They're using their bloodline to see the Tenketsu points and close them so that their opponent won't be able to utilize their chakra properly. It can also be used to attack major organs which would kill their target. It's considered the strongest taijutsu in Konoha. Scratching the back of his head, he glanced back to the fight. Geez, they can do all that with a few fingers? Kakashi nodded. Yes, it is certainly something that you should approach with caution. Because they can do so much with so little movement, other nations have orders to strictly avoid engaging in taijutsu with them. Keep this in mind. One of you might have to fight the winner of this bout in the long run. The Hyuga continued their exchange, neither seemingly able to land a clean hit. Hinata jumped back, avoiding the last attempted strike by her cousin, who smirked. Have you realized how futile it is to continue, Lady Hinata? There is nothing you can throw at me that I won't be able to counter. Your knowledge of the gentle fist does not outstrip my own. Give up before I am forced to defeat you. Hinata shook her head. I'm not done yet, Neji. In a flurry of hand signs, Hinata held a tiger seal before a clone puffed into existence beside her. Neji scoffed. What a waste. If you think a pair of extra hands will help you against me, then you're woefully out of your league. The Byakugan has no blind spot. I can tell the clone from the original and keep track of both. Hinata didn't respond. Instead, she gathered a few ninja tools and gave them to the clone. With her own shuriken in hand, Hinata threw a volley of the ninja stars straight at Neji entering the fray, as her clone circled around to the left to attack Neji's flank. Neji scoffed, removing a kunai from his own holster. He parried the projectiles. Pathetic. Hinata was unmoved. Instead, she readied another volley to launch. Neji ran towards her, methodically blocking each piece of metal as he closed the distance between them. Hinata moved to keep her space, occasionally throwing another ninja tool in an attempt to slow her pursuer. It seemed futile. Neji was able to see every attack and act accordingly. However, whenever he was about to enter striking range, he would have to avert course to avoid another projectile from his flank. The clone worked to keep the right distance. Too far, and it would be harder to intervene. Too close risked being dispelled. The process repeated 3 times, frustrating Niji, who stopped and glared at his cousin. He opened his mouth to speak, but closed his mouth when he noticed that the clone was picking up the discarded ninja tools off the ground. I see. You're aware that you'll only shame yourself and the clan if you attempt to fight me with the gentle fist, so you're running and hoping to tire me out. At least you're smart enough to realize that you're outmatched, but you only delay the inevitable. Hinata kept her stance. A ninja doesn't attack where the enemy is strong, but where the enemy is weak. Niji scoffed, a weakling's ideology. And no, a ninja's philosophy. Korinia listened to her student, glancing over at Kakashi, who seemed to notice he was being looked at as he shifted his gaze lazily to her with a smile. Seems like she picked up quite a few things from those sessions with you, Kakashi-san. You have my thanks. Kakashi waved his hand. Mama, no need for the san, Korinia. It makes me feel old. She's not so bad. She just needed a little change in perspective and a spoonful of confidence. I actually considered having her just hang around Sasuke. He's got more than enough to spare. Said Uchiha, grumbled something that sounded like nothing wrong with positive self-image. The red-eyed Jounin laughed. I see. I've been working with her on that, but it seems that your way really broke through to her. Kakashi shrugged. Now you set the foundation, I just added a little incentive. Incentive. Kakashi scratched the side of his face. It's nothing worth mentioning, trust me. He was not going to tell her that he knowingly had her train with her Byakugan near the bathhouse while Naruto was soaking. I still can't figure out who's worse, me for exposing my preteen student to his crush's all-seeing eyes, or her who saw and never once objected to it. No, he'd keep that little detail to himself. After all, he wasn't going to be the one responsible to corrupting a clan heiress. The audience watched as the fight began again. Wanting to break the stalemate, Niji kicked up the pace. Using chakra to increase his speed, he once again moved to close the distance, coming closer to his cousin before he was forced to avoid the clone's attack. Spinning, he avoided the projectile while letting his kunai fly towards the clone, who had to scramble to avoid being hit. Now in range, and with no time to grab more tools, Niji met with Hinata with a clash of hands. The two continued their attacks, Niji occasionally breaking off to avoid being hit by the clone, but with their close proximity, the clone couldn't get in a good shot without risking hitting Hinata. Neither the clone or Hinata being able to land a single hit or force him to disengage. Finally, after brushing away another strike from Niji, who was too slow to put up his guard, Hinata slammed her palm into the center of Niji's chest, who skid back from the force. Naruto was ecstatic. All right, Hinata. The girl smiled at his praise, but her smile faltered as she noticed that her cousin's chakra network was undamaged. I see you realize how hollow your strike was. Turning her attention to her hands, she was startled to see that both of her tenketsu points near her wrists were closed, effectively cutting chakra to her hands, preventing her from using the gentle fist. With that, your jutsu are sealed, and so is the gentle fist. It is as I said, you are fated to lose this match. Hinata trembled as she readied her hands again. I might not have the gentle fist, but I won't give up. Ninja are expected to overcome all obstacles that stand in their way. I won't give up without giving it my all. That is my ninja way. Still shaking, she stood her ground and locked eyes with her cousin. Niji scowled as he rushed towards Hinata, intent on finishing the fight. He closed the distance, forcing his way inside and past Hinata's guard to deliver another strike towards her heart. At the last minute, he was forced to change his attack to the clone, who had abandoned their projectile strategy and rushed in behind him. Catching it mid-strike with a palm to the chest, Niji smirked. And just like that, your little clone is erg. To the surprise of Niji and the audience, the clone dispelled not in a puff of smoke, but with a cackle of electricity that seemed to invade the Hyuga's system, shocking him and bringing him to his knees. He struggled to look at Hinata, his movements jerky as his whole body twitched. He looked like he wanted to speak, but couldn't get the words out. Lighting clone, capable of shocking opponents upon dispelling. Why, you were right, Niji-san. There was nothing I could use in the Hyuga style that you wouldn't know how to deal with. But I am more than just the heiress of the Hyuga clan, and you are more than just a branch member. We cannot control how we enter this world or to whom, Niji-san. but we do control our destiny. This match is mine. Kurenai watched in surprise before turning to Kakashi. Lighting manipulation? That fast. Kakashi gave her an eye smile. Her control, like most Hyuga, is above average and she has the chakra pool for it. It's low-level nature manipulation, but she's a quick study. Kurenai nodded and filed that away for later usage. He left out that he'd actually had a shadow clone of himself disguised as Naruto working out near her whenever they had a session. I should probably give him a heads up at some point, at least about that little tidbit. Neji struggled to gain control over his body, but it was clear that he was at Hinata's mercy as she removed a kunai from her pouch. Neji-san's surrender dash, she never got to finish. As she moved to put the blade against his neck, Neji regained control of his body. Snarling, he hit various Tenketsu points on Hinata's person, closing them and doing damage at the same time. He finished with a strike center mass, similar to what Hinata had done to him earlier, but with the full effects of the gentle fist. Hinata gasped and fell to her knees, pain radiating all over her body. She coughed blood as she tried to keep her breath, splattering the ground with a sizable amount. Hate forced his way between the two, placing a hand onto Neji's chest to push him away as he called for a medical team. Kakashi frowned. He went for a kill shot. Sakura gasped as Team 7 turned towards their teacher. Oh, really? But they're family. Kakashi nodded. Yes, but there is bad blood. It's not my place to share, but he went at her with the intent to kill. Naruto watched as Hinata was loaded onto a stretcher by two of the medical ninja, her breathing labored and her face twisted in pain. Asterisk cough winner. Neji Hyuga. Neji regained his stoic expression as he straightened up. Like I said, trash will always be trash. That's enough. All eyes turned to Naruto, who had jumped down to the arena floor seething as he glared at Neji. Sakura was scandalized. Naruto, you baka, what are you doing? This was a match. You can't get mad at the results. Ignoring his teammate, the blonde decided to address Neji directly. I don't mind that she lost, or even that you two don't get along, but you didn't need to hurt her like that. You were trying to kill her. I hear you were the dead last of your class. Fate trash sticks together. And what would you know about it? I know that Hinata kicked your butt. She nearly had you, and she was supposed to be trash. Now it was Neji's turn to glare. Close doesn't cut it. She hid behind tricks in an attempt to win, but it still wasn't enough. Fate already declared me the victor. Fate didn't have anything to do with you trying to kill her. I'll pay you back on her behalf. Neji raised a brow. Are you challenging me? Naruto didn't respond immediately. He reached down and dipped his hand in Hinata's blood, letting it cover his hand before he closed it into a fist. I'll defeat you and prove once and for all that it doesn't matter if you're dead last or rookie of the year. The outcome of a fight isn't chosen by titles or fate. It's a promise, and Uzumaki Naruto never breaks a promise. Believe it. Neji met his glare for a moment, before turning away wordlessly to make his way back to the viewing area. Naruto watched him go, smoldering in his agitation before hate brought him back to the present. Asterisk cough. Now that you're done being dramatic, can you clear the floor so that we can continue? Naruto turned towards the proctor and gave a sheepish smile. Sorry about that. Do you have a towel? No. Right.